Hello everyone. Welcome to another part of What If Deku Ran an Orphanage. If you enjoy the story, please like, subscribe, and share the video. It really helps me out. I did not write the story. The original writer is Kyodon. Please go support them. Now let us dive in. A new world. Izuku loved quirks. Despite his lack of one, he'd always had an appreciation for their power, their uniqueness, and all the ways they could be used. For example, right now Izuku was watching as Sansan held the new boy in place while Kyoko used her quirk on him. The boy was feral, raised in the woods his whole life. He didn't understand a single thing about language or how to act in a civilized way or anything like that. And teaching him would likely take a long time and a lot of painstaking effort. And while Izuku wasn't averse to hard work, but he had a lot of work to do. So he decided to cheat. Kyoko's quirk lets her insert years' worth of memories within a few hours, essentially letting him cram a lot of knowledge directly into his head. Of course, this did have a few issues. For one, Kyoko couldn't teach him anything she herself didn't know, but that wasn't really an issue here as he only wanted her to teach him basic Japanese and how to act in civilization. They also had to erase some memories of his. The brain could only handle so many memories, so in order to cram this much knowledge into him, she had to remove some other memories. But since most of his memories were just him trying not to die in the wild, Izuku didn't have an issue with this. It took hours, many hours. But by the time the sun set, they were done. Finished. Kyoko sighed. "Daddy, I'm tired." "Thank you, Kyoko. Here." Izuku handed her her favorite treat. Chocolate with nuts. The girl quickly took the candy bar and started unwrapping it. Izuku turned his attention to the boy. The boy looked overwhelmed. His red beady eyes looked around the room constantly, although he was no longer struggling against Sansan's grip. Izuku walked in front of the boy, whose eyes focused on him. They just stared at each other for a while before the boy tried to talk. Daddy?" The boy spoke words that were foreign to him. His mind had been properly taught them, but his body had never even tried to say them before. "Daddy give food? Daddy give home?" It makes sense that the first thing he would ask about is that. He's been trying to survive for his entire life. After all, so food and shelter have always been on his mind. Izuku gave his best smile to try and reassure the child. "Yes, I'll give you all the food you want. And you can stay here for as long as you want. If you want, that is." The boy's eyes shined. He was aware now of the new situation he was in. He would no longer have to look for food day by day. He would no longer have to sleep on a cold cave floor. He didn't need to fight animals anymore. The boy felt something. Something he did not recognize. He searched his new memories for context. Peace. That's what it was. He felt at peace. The weight of having to worry about his own survival was suddenly gone. For the first time since he could remember, his body relaxed. "Oh, I forgot. You need a name," Izuku said. "I already have one in mind, but if you don't like it, you can always just say no." "I was thinking, Yami." "Why a Yami?" The newly dubbed Yami tried out his name. He was Yami now. This would be what he was referred to in this new life. Because that was truly the only way the boy, no, Yami, could describe it. There was so much new that had been put upon him. But so long as he was fed and given shelter, Yami would be more than happy to cooperate. New food. Yami looked at his plate oddly, inspecting it thoroughly. On his plate was meat. Apparently it was called steak and was the favorite of his silver-haired sister. He was familiar with meat, but it didn't look like any meat he'd ever seen before. The new memories he'd been given told him that cooking food made it taste better and made it safer to eat. But seeing something in a fake memory and seeing something in real life were very different. "Is something wrong with it?" Izuku asked the boy. "I thought you might be more comfortable with meat, so I just made Kiba's favorite and hoped you would like it." "It was truly a smart choice, caretaker," Kiba said while gobbling her steak down in huge pieces. "This is a fine dish for anyone to start with. You are truly blessed, brother." "Stop eating so fast, you're going to choke," Fu told her while eating at similar speeds. "Just because you can't die from choking doesn't mean you shouldn't follow your own advice, Fu," Izuku told them sternly. As his father was scolding his new siblings, Yami sniffed his food. His eyes widened in surprise. It smelled good. Really good. It was the best thing he had ever smelled in his life. Almost immediately his instincts took over and he grabbed the steak with both hands and bit into it. The taste was divine. Yami nearly cried from how good it was. He had a hard time believing this was meat at all from just how different it was. Juices flowed through his mouth and flavor burst from the steak. As soon as he swallowed it, he knew he needed more. He savagely tore through his steak, eating it like a wolf ate his prey. Large chomps tore the steak apart, juices flying all over the table, floor, and Yami himself. Barely a minute had passed and he was already done with his meal. Much to his chagrin. More. Yami demanded, looking at his father with desperate eyes. Izuka looked at the child who had gotten food everywhere, making a mess of both the table, floor, and his new clothes, and sighed. Guess I should have seen this coming. I'll give you more, but first, you need to remember to say please, Izuku told the child. It's the polite way to ask people for things. Please, more. Yami begged. Second, if I do, you need to eat with a fork and knife this time, Izuku told him. You made a big mess and someone is going to have to clean that up, and by that I mean me. Yami looked around him to observe the mess he made. According to his new memories, people didn't like it when there was mess. Which he just made. The boy turned a bit sheepish, having accidentally wronged the person who was now feeding him. What was the word to use after doing something like this? You're welcome, Yami said, confusing everyone around him. This tipped him off that he had said the wrong word. Sorry? Izuka still gave him a confused look until he realized what happened. He must have mixed up the words. We did force an entire language into his head. It makes sense he would get a few things confused. Apology accepted. Izuka nodded, letting the boy know he chose the right words. Just make sure to help clean up after you're done with the other steak. The boy nodded rapidly, happy his mess up didn't mean he wouldn't get more steak. Vampire versus spider. In the backyard, Kiba and Fu fiddled with a camera. Izuka had given them instructions on how to set it up but didn't go with them due to the fact that he was not ready to be on camera anytime soon. Fu, is it on? Kiba asked her minion/brother. Should be, Fu said, looking at a laptop that displayed the chat. Brilliant. Good evening, my minions. And behold, my backyard. Kiba said, moving the camera around so it could get the best view possible. Holy shit. I knew she was a rich girl. Is that a backyard or a public park? Parents must have dough. Correction, parent. I only have a father. Kiba corrected after Fu showed her the chat. Oh. What do you think happened to the mom? Wealthy single father. So the dad is single then? Begone THOD. Fu smirked for a moment in amusement. I don't think dad's getting in a relationship anytime soon. New voice, who that? Brother? Minion? Boyfriend? Yes, you, Fu said. This, my minions, is my right-hand man and also my brother. Fu, introduce yourself. Kiba ordered, turning the camera to him. Hello, random strangers, Fu said in his typical monotone with his typical expressionless expression. He looks so bored. Is he okay? I've never seen a child who looks so dead inside. Someone meme that face. Oh, don't worry about him. His emotions are kinda barely existent. But he's fine, Kiba said. But more importantly, it is time for me to show you the true extent of my power. Oh, we're gonna see her quirk. I bet it's turning into a bat. Today I shall dash. Before Kiba could finish, she was interrupted by a newcomer. Kiba, are you streaming out here? Fu and Kiba looked to the side and saw Shiruka holding Eri and Kyoku. Spider girl. Ah, spider. Kill it with fire. Ah, quirk discrimination. Kill with fire. And banned, Fu said, banning the second commenter. No quirk discrimination allowed here. Good. Preach. Pog. Also, are we not gonna look at the two other cuties? They're so cute. Adorbs. More siblings. Behold, minions, a glorious day for you to be sure to meet 4 of my siblings in one day. A shame Yami, Kei, and Sansan are not here. Then I would be able to introduce you to my entire family for now. Kiba said. But for now, behold my sisters, Shiruku, Kyoku, and Eri. Say hi to my minions. Are we on camera? Kyoka realized, squirming to get out of Shiruki's grip and hide. Eri just froze up after realizing she was being looked at by a bunch of strangers. Shiruku realized that the two girls would be uncomfortable in front of an audience. Wait one moment. Shiruka suddenly jumped forward, leaping many feet into the air and causing soft winds to kick up around her. Once she was in the air, she shot a web at the house and pulled herself towards it. After reaching the wall, she crawled on them at max speed, getting out of sight in only a few moments. Kiba made sure that, of course, this was all caught on camera. Spider girl. Insert spider dance. Can she use her quirk like that without a license? Their house is a place they can use their quirks freely. That includes their backyard. Also, holy crap, that house? House? Where? I see no house. Only a castle fit for a queen. Hail the queen. Hail the queen. Hail the queen. So the dad is single, right? Begone THOD. Begone THOD. Begone THOD. But I mean, she has a point. By the time the chat finished freaking out, Shiruka had returned, now without the other two siblings. Did Daddy not tell you two to tell us before you started streaming? Shiruka crossed her arms and glared at her two siblings. You know those two were shy. Sorry. Fu apologized. Apologies, it slipped my mind, Kiba said, blushing with embarrassment. Of course it did. Shiruka gave Kiba's head a flick. Please try and think before you do things. Naturally, Kiba said, as if that was a thing she did regularly, receiving a deadpan stare from her sister. Fu frowned. While not many people left discriminatory comments, he did notice that the view count did go down noticeably after Shiruka arrived. Even if we escaped from the city, they're still out there. It's just a reminder of what everyone is really like. Fu thought as he continued to ban people. Although now that I think about it, why were you here, sister? You're normally up in your room knitting. Kiba commented. Those two had fallen asleep in the greenhouse again, and Daddy asked me to take them to their rooms, Shiruka answered. Doesn't he normally ask Sansan to do that? Kiba asked. Sansan was typically the person Izuku asked for when it came to performing tasks, as she never ran out of stamina and her ability to shape-shift made it really easy to do things. Yes, but I'm faster and I was close by, so he asked me instead, Shiruka explained. Suddenly, Kiba had an idea. Speaking of speed, I was about to display my suburb speed to my viewers in a little exercise. Since you are the only one here who could potentially rival my pace, would you like to participate in a little race? Oh, this can only end well, Fu said sarcastically. Shiruka thought about it. What's in it for me? If you win, I'll let you eat Fu's insides while they're still attached to him. Kiba offered. Agreed, Shiruka responded. Wait, what? What the fuck? Nanny. Oh yeah, spiders are cannibals. So if she's a half spider, she would also be a cannibal. Should we call the police? Run, Fu. Fu face-bombed. You forgot to explain my quirk. Oh right? Kiba realized. Don't worry, my loyal minions. Fu's body is undying and will restore itself almost instantly. And he is immune to pain. Quite useful for blood sacrifices. Oh, an infinite supply of meat. Still gross. Are their parents okay with this? Quirks that force cannibalism are unfortunate, but it's not like the users can help it. That is the reason why legally selling human meat is allowed. People like Fu have been selling their body parts ever since regeneration quirks came into existence. It's perfectly fine. Alrighty then, let us take out places. Kiba declared. The two of them stood right next to each other, getting into running positions. Ready, set, go, Kiba shouted. The two of them immediately blasted off at speeds that only pro heroes could keep up with. Shiruka and Kiba were neck and neck as they ran all around their backyard. As they approached the finish line, Shiruka suddenly jumped and shot a web past the line and pulled herself past Kiba and right past the finish line. Ugh! Hey, no fair! Kiba protested. This was supposed to be a contest of speed. And it was. My web lets me move faster than you. Shiruka said smugly. Humph. Well, I was only at 70% power. If I was at 100%, I would have won. Kiba said. I demand a rematch against my full power. Can I still eat Fu's insides? Shiruka asked. Fine. Kiba agreed. Then okay, Shiruka said. Could you please ask me before you offer my body to people? Fu asked. Oh please, Shiruka isn't people, she's family. You should always be willing to offer your body to your family. Like right now. Kiba said, walking towards the boy. That sentence is so very wrong. What a strange family. Wait, is Fu about to get eaten right in front of us? Realizing that her sister forgot she was being watched, Shiruka moved the camera away from Fu. All the audience heard was the sound of flesh ripping, blood gushing, and some sucking noises. Gross, 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 gross. So I'm guessing her quirk has something to do with eating people as well? I think it's blood-related. Kiba came back on camera, wiping some blood from her mouth with a handkerchief. I'm so glad you took my lesions on how to cleanly eat someone seriously. Shiruka praised. Of course. I couldn't get blood on your wonderful dress. And thanks for the handkerchief. Kiba said as she folded and put away said handkerchief. Now are you ready to get properly trampled? Fu, is the boy okay? Oh, Fu is fine. Once his neck grows back he'll just reattach his head. Kiba explained. The two of them got into position. To make me use my full power. I suppose it is to be expected of my siblings. Kiba spouted. But now you see my true strength. Be in awe of my excellence and dash. Can we go already? Shiruka interrupted. Fine. Go. Kiba signaled. Vroom. Kiba sped off at full speed, going much faster than she did last time and leaving Shiruku definitively in her dust. By the time Kiba was halfway around, it was obvious she was going to win. So naturally she had to show off. Instead of going right for the finish line, she decided she would take a detour around the pool. She leaped over the pool, which was a considerable distance considering how big it was, in one leap, before leaping over it again and again and again. Shiruku rolled her eyes as she started gaining on the show-off. Kiba, still fully confident in her ability, then went to the greenhouse and took a mighty leap, intending on landing on the roof and then jumping off of it back onto the track. However, she leapt far too high, causing her to go soaring into the sky before coming back down. And while the impact of the fall wouldn't damage her, it would certainly damage the glass roof. Break! Kiba went right through the roof and into the greenhouse. Oh! Was all Kiba could think as she went through the glass. Crash! Kiba fell face first onto the floor of the greenhouse. Ow, 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 ow! She groaned. Landing from the height she jumped onto the roof wouldn't have hurt. Falling from that height through the ceiling on her face. It did sting a bit. After taking a few seconds to recover, Kiba started to pull herself off the ground, only to feel a sharp pain in her right arm. She looked at her shoulder and saw that there was a shard of glass of not insignificant size embedded in her arm. Uh-oh, Kiba repeated, this time out loud. Shiruku came rushing through the doors, looking around until her eyes landed on Kiba. Kiba. Shiruku crawled over quickly and went to inspect both Kiba's wound and the hole in the ceiling. Are you okay? Yeah. It hurts, but I'll be fine. Kiba blinked away a few tears. She had been through a lot in her time on the streets, so she was used to having to deal with pain to some extent. You don't look fine. Shiruka pointed out. We need to get Daddy right now. No. Kiba panicked, dropping out of character. No, 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 no. If Dad finds out about this, he'll flip. How do you think Daddy won't find out about this? You've been stabbed and there is a hole in the ceiling. Shiruka shouted. Maybe we can use your webs to fix the roof and hide the cut. Kiba responded. Wait. Shiruka suddenly thought of something. Does Dad watch your videos? Kiba's eyes went wide with fear as she suddenly heard the greenhouse door open. A few minutes later, in the medical room. So, what have we learned? Izuku asked her with his arms crossed and an angry expression on his face. Not to use my quirk without knowing how it might break something, Kiba repeated the line that Izuku had spent the last half an hour drilling into her. I keep telling you this over and over again, and now look. You managed to hurt yourself. Izuku scolded, pointing to her wound which was fully bandaged up. You could take a hit from Death Arms and shake it off. And you found a way to hurt yourself. Do you have any idea how worried I was when I saw you go through the roof? Kiba looked down in shame. Izuku almost never got angry at them. But when he did, it was deserved and they knew it. After all, the only things that really made him angry was when they hurt each other or when they hurt themselves. She could see him crying again. He did it often. Very often. But this time was different. She made him cry. And not a happy cry. A sad, upset, concerned cry. I'm sorry. Kiba apologized. I mean, what were you thinking? I've told you over and over not to jump from high places because the thing you're landing on may not be as strong as you and not look. You're hurt. Izuku repeated. He was so swept up in his rant that he wasn't even looking at Kiba anymore. I'm sorry. Kiba sniffled. And it was glass. Glass. Sure, it's less fragile than most types of glass, but it's still glass. It got stuck in your arm. It went through your arm. Izuku cried. You're. Izuku stopped when he noticed Kiba sniffling. He looked at the vampire girl. She was crying. It was much softer than his crying, like she was still trying to keep a cool front but just couldn't stop the tears from falling. I'm sorry. She repeated, her voice wavering as she tried her best not to cry. Without any further hesitation, Izuku wrapped his arms around her. I'm sorry. He apologized. I didn't mean to yell at you. I can't stand it when you get hurt. You guys mean everything to me. I don't think I could take it if anything happened to you. This ironically only made her feel worse. Up until she met Izuku, she could barely remember what it was like to have a parent, let alone one that cared. For that reason, she never liked taking him for granted. He was precious to her. So making him upset, disappointing him, she hated it. I'm sorry, Kiba cried. I won't let it happen again. I promise. It's okay. It's okay. Izuku soothed the sobbing girl while he himself was sobbing. I'm not mad anymore. I don't like making you cry, Kiba admitted. It makes me feel bad. Oh. Izuku realized what she meant. He was touched. They cared so much. After all, not many people did, and he couldn't stop a few more tears from coming out. Kiba, you and the others have made me feel happier than I have in, well, a long time. Seeing you all happy gives me purpose. It's more than worth any tears or hardships I'll have to go through to watch you all grow. Plus I cry very easily. But I still feel so bad. You give me food, blood, siblings, and everything I could ever want. I have no right to upset you. Kiba protested. And I keep breaking things and making mistakes. Izuku frowned. Kiba was certainly the most troublesome out of the children. Her overly energetic nature, combined with her eccentric personality and her ridiculous strength and speed, made it so she tended to cause some sort of trouble on an almost regular basis. But Izuku never held it against her. And he certainly never loved her any less for it. Everyone makes mistakes, Kiba. Even vampire queens. Izuku told her. It's not your fault that your quirk makes it hard not break things. That's why you're all here. And just like all the other kids, I love you. No matter what. Even if I keep breaking things? Kiba sniffed. Even if you keep breaking things, Izuku reassured her. The two hugged and Kiba's crying eventually stopped. Thanks, Dad. I mean caretaker. Kiba said, getting back into her persona. No problem, Izuku told her. But I am going to increase fragile objects training. Kiba grimaced. Out of all her training, fragile objects training was her least favorite. It was basically training revolving around not breaking easy-to-break objects. Paper, eggs, styrofoam, thin planks of wood. More often than not, she tended to fail this type of training a lot. And I'm making you take physics lessons on weakness, Izuku told her. If you're going to use your quirk, then I'm going to make sure you know how to use it. Kiba groaned. She didn't hate when Izuku did their lessons, but she didn't love it either. And she looked at physics once and it looked extremely complicated and boring. And also you were banned from streaming for 3 days, Izuku explained. Oh come on. Kiba complained. Aren't the other two things punishment enough? Those two weren't punishments. Those are to help you control your strength. That last one is a punishment. Izuku said. And if you do any more dumb things for views, I will take your recording equipment for a lot longer. Kiba pouted. Fine. I suppose my minions will have to wait. That they will. Izuku picked Kiba up. Now let's go, you have to apologize for worrying all your siblings. Humph. I suppose I'll have to remind them that the great Kiba is Kiba stopped and looked at her bandages. Nearly invisible. Invincible or not, we'll always worry about you, Izuku told her with a genuine smile on his face. Kiba pouted and tried to act like she wasn't touched by their care. But despite it being her favorite color, the red on her face betrayed her completely. Izuku and Achiko had decided to hang out. Achiko was of course the one to ask as she thought Izuku could use some fun times with friends. Izuku had come up with the idea of having some tea and sweets in their garden, which Achiko was greatly enjoying. The wonderful clear sky and warm sun giving them more than enough comfort. Sorry if the incomplete garden doesn't look too good right now. I wanted to leave it to the kids, but right now only Eri, Kyoku, and Kei really enjoy gardening. And Yami recently tried to eat one of the plants. I think he got confused when we taught him food could grow out of the ground. Izuku explained with an embarrassed blush on his face. No, it's fine. I think it looks pretty just as it is. Achiko reassured him with a bright smile, making his blush darken. Also, I noticed 2 more kids around. Did the OPCCC give you 2 kids at once? Well, no. They gave me Shiruku, which is the spider girl, but Yami, kidnapped me. Izuku admitted. What? How do these things keep happening to you? Are you sure you're not some kind of dangerous child magnet? Achiko asked, her serious expression betraying her silly question. I swear I'm not. Izuku denied, his hands flying out in front of his face as he defended himself. It's all just a coincidence. Once a coincidence, twice is a weird coincidence, 7 times means something weird is happening. Achiko half jokes. It's like fate or something. Yeah, fate. There was a noticeable bit of sadness in his voice when he said that, however, he quickly moved on. So how was you? It was sure. Achiko hesitated. Something. Izuka gave both a surprised and befuddled look. That's not what I was expecting. I thought she was going to say that it was wonderful or great or something. Seeing his confusion, Achiko decided to go into detail. So I walked into the classroom, homeroom teacher isn't even there yet, and the first thing I see is that I'm in the same class as that prick Bakugo. Achiko raged. Oh no. Izuka didn't see this going well. After Kyoka told him everything she saw in All Might's memories, he learned about the investigation, the punishments given towards the school, and the students that had bullied him, as well as Bakugo in particular. He wasn't a fan, but it's not like he could really do anything about it. All he could do was hope that this punishment would make Bakugo reflect and become a better person. Please tell me you didn't get into a fight with him. Izuka half-begged. That was the first thing I did, Achiko said without a hint of shame. Izuka let out a long-suffering sigh. Why? Because he's a bully. So I let him know what I thought of him right to his face. Achiko revealed much to Izuku's horror. I told him, I don't know what Yue is thinking letting a bullying, discriminating piece of trash like you in, but if you try any of that ever again, I will make your life a living hell. Izuka groaned and drank some of his tea to calm himself. I'm guessing he didn't respond kindly. Oh, he was pissed. Achiko confirmed with a strange glee and smug smirk. I don't think I've heard anyone scream so many curses in my life. I think he was ready to fight me right there. But then the homeroom teacher arrived and reminded him what thin ice he's on. He looked like he was going to explode. And I don't mean his quirk. It was hilarious. I don't really think it's funny, Izuka said. Kaken is already being punished, you don't need to make it worse. He might actually get expelled if you keep antagonizing him. And good riddance. Achiko scowled. Seriously, Midoriya, why do you keep defending him? I've known him for a week and I can't find one redeeming factor about him. Kaken can be violent, abrasive, over-angry, and a lot of other less positive things, but he's very determined. He's smart and his quirk is super powerful. Izuku explained. He could do so much good if he just fixed his personality a little. You know, you could also say that about every rank and above villain in existence. They're smart, determined, and powerful. If only they just fixed their personality a little. Achiko said sarcastically. Kaken's not that bad. Izuka rebutted. Bullies are only a few steps down from villains. And both can take lives. Achiko argued. That made Izuku fall silent as he remembered the cruelest words Kaken had ever said to him. Do a swan dive off the roof and hope you're born with a quirk in your next life. I'm sure he didn't mean that. He thought. But still, the fact that he said it all shook him slightly. I mean, would you really trust him around any of the kids? Achiko asked him. Izuka thought about Bakugo being around the kids before immediately cringing and throwing that thought away. Best keep them separated. If they meet, it'll go poorly for everyone. Especially Kaken. That's what I thought, Achiko said, taking Izuku's expression as an answer. Can we talk about something else? Izuku asked. Fine. Achiko agreed. After that, we met our teacher, Aizawa-sensei. Aizawa, I don't remember a pro hero with that name. Izuku was genuinely stumped. As an enormous hero fan, he thought he would have known any hero she would have mentioned. What did he look like? Well, he had long messy black hair, he looked super tired, his outfit was mostly black except for his weird gray scarf, and I think he may have had some goggles? Achiko described. Izuka searched his memory for a moment before remembering who exactly that was. Oh, it's Eraserhead. No wonder I didn't know it was him. He's one of the biggest underground heroes around. Underground heroes? Achiko had never heard the term before. Underground heroes are heroes who like to keep out of the limelight and away from public attention. They're basically secret heroes. Izuku explained. Oh, that does make sense. Achiko agreed. Well, what happened next? Izuku asked. Okay, so he told us we weren't going to orientation and instead just gave us this quirk test off the bat. And then he told us that whoever got last would be expelled. Achiko continued. Izuku nearly choked on his tea. What? Expelled? But it was only your first day. I know, right? I tried telling him it was unfair, but he just said life's unfair. Get over it. Achiko said in a mock gruff voice. But it turns out he was lying anyway. He just wanted us to give it our all. Oh, that makes way more sense. Izuka calmed himself. Still, that must have been really stressful. It was. I was sweating like a stuck pig the entire time. I thought I was gonna die from anxiety. Achiko whined. Well, I guess that's just preparing you for the future, Izuka said, trying to find a silver lining. Yeah, I guess you're right. Achiko sighed before stuffing her face with sweets. I just thought that the stress would come after we graduated. After waiting a moment for Achiko to finish her snacks, she continued. So the next day we had hero course lessons with All Might. Achiko noticed the minute she said that Izuku perked up and pulled a notebook out of seemingly nowhere. And that was a lot more fun. Really? Izuku was on the edge of his seat. Yup. Because I got to beat the tar out of Bakugo. Achiko said with a devious smirk. Izuka visibly deflated. Uraraka. Yeah, I get it. But I had to for the exercise. Achiko defended. It was 2-on-2. One team of heroes, one team of villains. The villain team had to defend a bomb for a certain amount of time or defeat the hero team to win. The hero team had to touch the bomb or defeat the villain team to win. Me and my friend Sue were heroes and Bakugo and our classmate Ida were villains. I'm guessing Kakin went straight for you? Izuku asked. He already knew the answer to that. After publicly disrespecting him, Bakugo was sure to try and explode the crap out of her. Yup. And I went right for him. Achiko replied. So you did fight. Izuku looked at Achiko, trying to see if there were any injuries he didn't see earlier. Yup. And we technically won. Achiko proclaimed proudly. Technically? Izuku asked. Okay, so me and Bakugo did destroy most of the building and I did break both my arms, but Sue got past Ida due to all his footing being destroyed and got the bomb. Achiko explained. You broke your arms? Izuku immediately ignored everything else she just said in favor of being concerned over one of the details. Yes, but I'm fine. See. Achiko moved her arms around to prove her point. Recovery Girl healed me up with her quirk, so I recovered a lot faster. Oh, Recovery Girl. I almost forgot she worked at UA. Izuka said. Still though, to think Kakin would go that far. Achiko laughed nervously. Well, you see, he didn't break my arm. I did. Izuka stared at her blankly for a few moments, completely confused at what she just said. What? My body can't handle 100% of one for all yet, so whenever I use it, I break every bone in the limb I use it in, Achiko explained, cringing as she remembered the pain she felt whenever she used her new quirk. I'd only used it once before, during the entrance exam. I said I wouldn't use it again until I figured out how to control it. So why'd you use it? Izuka seemed very stressed out about this. Well, you weren't wrong when you said Bakugo is strong. And I couldn't just lose to someone like that. So when things got bad, I pulled out one for all. Achiko explained. You really broke both your arms just to beat Kakin? Izuku asked. Of course. No one hurts my friend and gets away with it. Achiko proclaimed. Izuka blushed. Hearing someone proudly proclaim him as not only a friend, but someone worth getting upset about if they got hurt, both touched and embarrassed him to a measure he couldn't quite understand. I'm really not worth breaking your arms over. That's right. You're worth breaking 2 arms over. Achiko joked cheekily. Izuka turned crimson. Just please don't do that again. I wouldn't be able to take it if anything bad happened to you. If you don't count Kakin or All Might, then you're really the only friend I've ever had. You're important to me. So, don't keep hurting yourself. Izuku looked like steam was about to come out of his ears as he uttered every word of that sentence, and he couldn't even look at Achiko. Achiko herself blushed a bit as she was a mix of touched by what Izuka said and amused at Izuku's reaction. Thanks. I'll try not to. Hurting myself isn't exactly high on my to-do list. Achiko laughed and Izuka joined with a softer, more awkward laugh. After that, there was a small moment of silence as the two of them enjoyed some warm tea and pleasant winds. As the silence went on, Izuka started to get nervous. Did I ruin the conversation? Did I make it weird? What do I say now? How do I tell if she's weirded out or not? Before Izuku could try anything stupid, Achiko asked him a question. Do you feel cheated? Achiko asked him. Izuku was knocked out of his thoughts. Sorry. Too vague. I mean, do you feel cheated that you didn't get one for all? Achiko asked, a bit of guilt in her voice. No. Izuka answered almost instantly. Achiko was taken aback by how quickly and decisively he said that. Wait, really? Not even a little bit. Not at all. When I first learned about it, I was a little disappointed that I wasn't picked, but it didn't last long. Izuku said, "Really? You learned that you weren't chosen for All Might's quirk, after years of not having a quirk, and you were only a little disappointed?" Achiko replied skeptically. Izuku's facade of "I'm okay" crumbled immediately, and Achiko was just as quickly stabbed with the guilt of "I shouldn't have said that. I mean, if you did, then good for you, you know?" Achiko quickly tried to figure out how to fix this. "No, you're right," Izuku admitted. "It actually did hurt to find that out. I couldn't stop myself from imagining a world where I did get chosen, where I went to UA and became a hero. It hurt for a few days, but it wasn't super hard to get over. I'd been having those kinds of fantasies my whole life. What if I was born with a quirk? I just learned how to get used to the fact that that's not the world I'm living in." Achiko frowned at her now thoroughly depressed friend. "Good going, Achiko. You just had to say that. But I wasn't lying when I said I didn't feel cheated," Izuku explained. "I never felt like I deserved it in the first place." "But you do," Achiko objected. "You're one of the nicest people I've ever met. And you took down the freaking Yakuza. That was a complete accident." Izuku tried to discredit himself. Lucky Overhaul was apparently a germaphobe and didn't want to look for Eri under some dirty laundry. "I heard about how you did it. I think if I was in the same position as you, I either would have died or only barely gotten away with Eri without any proof that he entered my house." Achiko argued. "You're smart, you're brave, and you have the heart of the hero. I think you could have been a hero even without a quirk." That blew Izuku's mind. What did you say?" Izuku said with no short amount of disbelief in his voice and expression. "I said you could have been a hero even without a quirk," Achiko repeated firmly. Izuku blinked, and then he blinked again. And then the tears started to fall. But surprisingly, not that many of them. It was a slow, bittersweet cry. This was a revelation for Izuku. Sure, people had said he could be a kind of hero, a hero to children. All Might had even said as much. But Achiko was the first person to say she believed in his dream. Because at the end of the day, what he was doing now was not his dream. It's not that he thought that taking care of kids wasn't a good thing. These kids needed someone like him, or in Izuku's opinion someone better than him, to show them that the world didn't hate them. That they can be loved and to give them that love. And it wasn't that he didn't love his kids. He would gladly cut off his own arm if it meant making them happy and seeing the smiles on their little faces. But it just wasn't his dream. It wasn't what he had spent countless nights fantasizing about since he was a child. It wasn't what he spent every day looking at. It wasn't what he spent years writing in notebooks about. As terrible as he felt about even thinking it. This wasn't what he wanted. He'd spent years hearing people tell him his dreams were stupid and impossible for someone like him to achieve. Even All Might and his mother didn't believe he could do it. Even he had given up. But what he just heard was proof that someone, anyone, would have believed in him. And he'd only met them after it was too late. And he'd signed away any hope of his dream coming true. Midoriya? Achiko's face was full of concern. Izuku realized he had just been frozen for a while, crying the entire time, and quickly went to whip away his tears. Sorry, it's just, that meant a lot to me. Thank you. Uraraka. Oh, you're welcome, Achiko said. I think you zoned out a bit while I was talking, but I was saying that I think All Might should have chosen you. After all that business with the Yakuza, I think you proved yourself more than worthy of it. But he already had you. Izuku pointed out. But I didn't need it, Achiko said. I could have passed without that quirk. I had a quirk and you didn't. And All Might could have fixed that. It's not fair. Izuku frowned at that comment. He took a long sip of his tea and for the first time during this meetup took a bite out of sweet. Your teacher was right. Life isn't fair. Izuku said somberly. Just because I don't have a quirk doesn't mean All Might had to give me one. If anything, it was smarter to give it to you. One for all can't be relied on in its current state, so it's good you have a quirk to fall back on. If it was me, I would have had no choice but to keep breaking my arms. Achiko was about to object, but Izuku spoke first. Uraraka, how many robots do you think I could have destroyed at the UA entrance exam if I had one for all? Izuku asked her. Achiko thought about it. She tried to think of a way that he could have destroyed enough robots to pass with only 2 uses of one for all, without the situation being incredibly contrived. After a few moments of silence, Izuku continued. I can't say I don't wish it was me who got one for all. I can at least be happy that the person who did get it was you. Izuku smiled at her. I can't say you're first person to care about me. But out of the short list of people that do, you're different. Mom cares about me because she's my mom. All Might feels guilty about telling me to give up my dreams. And to the kids, I'm their only source of kindness in a world that's been nothing but cruel to them. But you didn't befriend me because of some outside circumstance. I mean, All Might probably asked you to get along with me, but that didn't mean you had to be as nice to me as you are. I don't know if I'm being presumptuous or maybe I'm too hopeful, but I like to think that you just wanted to be my friend. For no other reason than because you thought I was enjoyable to be around. Izuku was blushing up a storm again, and his nervousness had returned. Well, you're right, Achiko confirmed. You seemed like a nice person, so I wanted to be friends with you. And I was right for thinking that. You're an amazing person, Midoriya. Never forget that. Izuku's blush intensified, and he tried to drink more tea but found he was out. He looked up and saw that the sun was setting. Oh, when did it get this late? Achiko looked up and noticed the same thing. You're right. I better get going. Thank you for the sweets. Sorry I ate most of them. Let me show you out. And don't worry about it. Izuku gave her his most genuine smile despite his blush. Thank you for being my friend. What Izuku and Achiko didn't know was that the kids were watching them on Izuku's monitor using the cameras all the way from his office. Yep, they're meant to be together, Shiruka said almost immediately. Okay, they have hung out once, Fu said. They're just good friends. I agree. Kyoko agreed a bit too quickly, her face betraying her anger. And even if she did like Daddy, we can't let her have him until we're 100% sure she's not going to hurt Daddy. I think you're being a bit too paranoid, sis, Kei said. Did you see how happy he was? It's like one of my Japanese anime. Why did you say it like that? Fu asked. I know, right? In the movies, the romance scenes are always like this early on. First, it's an awkward not date. Then it's a first kiss. Then it's marriage. And then it's kids. We're gonna have a mom. Kei gasped in excitement. Meanwhile, Kyoko was fuming. Real life and movies are very different. Even if they have feelings for each other, which I'm not saying they do, marriage and kids are a long ways away. I know that. But this is clearly the start of something wonderful and I say we ship it immediately. Shiruka said. Why are we speculating how they feel when we have an emotion detector right here, Kiba said, looking at a now sleeping Yami. Hey, wake up. Kiba proceeded to violently shake Yami awake. Wah, rah. Yami in retaliation for being woken up bit Kiba's hand. Ah, he bit me, Kiba said, dropping him to the ground and wiping the spit off her hand with her handkerchief. It didn't even hurt, Fu noted. Yeah, but it's gross, Kiba noted, putting away the handkerchief. Anyway, Yami, did you see their emotions? Can't see, Yami said curtly. Won't work. What do you mean it won't work? Kiba asked, frustration oozing from her voice. I think he means his quirk won't work when looking at people through screens. Fu theorized as he took out a notebook and wrote in it. Interesting. Ugh. Kiba groaned. Well, no matter. We'll see where this goes. And if she does intend on becoming our mother, then she will have to go through harsh trails. I mean, Izuku didn't have to go through any trails. Fu pointed out. Oh yes, he did. He went through the trial of compassion. A trail failed by many in the past. Kiba argued. I mean, I want to say that's dumb. But you're not wrong. Fu sighed. As most of the children argued amongst each other and Yami went back to sleep, Eri silently hoped that whatever happened, Izuku was happy. Naming. Yami was currently doing one of his favorite activities. Eating. Today's dish was strange, it was mostly white except for a small black stripe at the bottom. If his memory served correct, it was called a jelly-filled donut. Yeah, that sounds about right. Izuku had made him quite a few of these and gave them to him in a basket. They were snacks for him to eat while he explored the house. Of course, exploring this enormous place on foot would be tiring, so he just created one of his wolves to carry him. And so here he was, eating his jelly-filled donut on the back of his wolf while he looked around his new home. He didn't honestly know what most of the rooms were for, but he was sure he'd figure it out someday. Then, as he passed the training room, he spotted two of his siblings inside. Kiba, the vampire girl, and Fu, the zombie boy. He was about to ignore them and continue on his way when they spotted him as well. Ah well, if it isn't Yami. Kiba called out to him. Perfect timing, if you and your beast would please come in and assist us. Part of Yami wanted to just keep going, but at the same time he knew that Kiba was quite strong. And he did not have enough negative energy to create the kind of forces he'd need to oppose her. Deciding it would be best not to anger her, Yami did as she said and mentally ordered his wolf to enter. Perfect. I've been looking for someone to spar with, but Shiruku is uninterested, and if I keep turning fun into a bloody puddle then he'll need to eat all our food just to regenerate. Kiba explained. Please create as many of your strongest monsters as you can. Yami frowned. Not much. Little bad emotions. Kiba didn't seem to understand, but Fu did and pulled out a notebook. If I remember correctly, Yami's quirk, Creatures of Grimm, works by collecting negative emotions. If someone feels angry or scared or sad or some other negative emotion, he collects it and can use it as fuel to create his Grimm. Fu said, reading out some of his notes. He probably doesn't have much fuel being in a house where everyone is perfectly content. That was mostly true. Back when he lived in the wild, he was able to collect lots of negative emotion from the animals he hunted. After all, you tended not to be too happy when you were being hunted down and killed painfully. Now, none of the people here produced anywhere near enough negative energy to produce a Grimm, with the highest sources of negative energy being Izuku, Eri, and Kyoku whenever someone from outside was visiting, and the lowest sources being Kei, Sanson, and Fu. Fu not because he was overly happy, but because he was mostly devoid of any emotions whatsoever. It kinda creeped Yami out a little bit. It made it eerily hard to notice him. So how many Grimm can you create? Kiba asked. 3, Yami answered, showing 3 fingers. Or one big one. So I have to make a choice? Kiba was annoyed, but she quickly moved past it and started thinking. What are all the Grimm you can make? Yami sighed. Wolf, bear, big wing. Wait. Kiba stopped him. Are you telling me you haven't named your creation? Yami gave her a confused look. Ha! Kiba shook her head. Your creations are clearly far different from normal animals. To call them by simple animal names is unjust to your creations. You must give each and every one of them an awe-inspiring name. Why? Yami asked. Because I say so. Kiba decreed. The vampire girl then grabbed Yami and held him over her head. Now let us go. The wolf he summoned growled and went to defend him, but Kiba kicked him into a wall, causing him to dissipate. Guess I'm doing this now. Yami comforted himself with another jelly-filled donut. Gardening with Eri. Yami was spending his day as he normally did since his adoption. Sleeping. Now that he didn't have to worry about wild animal attacks or bad weather or starvation. He could sleep to his heart's content. And the bed he was given was so much more comfortable than anything he had ever felt before that he doubted he'd want to do much of anything else. Or at least that was the case most of the time. Bang bang bang. Yami! Shouted Kei from the other side of the door, pounding on it with her little fist. Let me in, let me in. Yami, 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 Yami. Yami growled as his peaceful sleep was interrupted. Rah! Leave. But I want to play with you. You're my first new brother since Fu. Kei argued. I want us to get along. Yami snarled. He really just wanted to go back to sleep. But he remembered Izuku telling him to get along with his siblings, and apparently that's what Kei wanted to do. Given that Izuku had so kindly taken care of his food and shelter issue, as well as giving him so many other amazing things like all those new foods and this cozy bed and blankets, it felt wrong to ignore him. With a sigh and lots of hesitation, Yami got up out of his bed and opened the door. All right. Kei cheered as she entered the room. So what should we do? You don't know. Yami asked, irritated she bothered him so much and yet didn't even know what to do. Nope. I just like to do whatever comes into my brain. Kei said, pointing to her snake-covered head. So, what comes into my brain today? Oh. I know, let's go to the greenhouse. You mean place where food grows? Yami asked, his interest piquing somewhat. If there was anything he loved as much as sleeping, it was eating. Yeah. Eri and Kyoku are trying to grow an apple tree. Maybe we can grow an egg tree. Kei stated with excitement. Yami gave her a confused look. Why would she want an egg tree? Eggs were those things that little birds came out of. You couldn't eat those, could you? Let's go ask Izuku. Kei grabbed Yami's hand and dragged him to Izuku's office. Izuku's office. Izuku sighed as he looked at the dozens and dozens of people he could hire. And he had no intention of hiring any of them. Darn trust issues. Izuku cursed his own mental shortcomings. Before Izuku could fall further down the hole of self-hate, Kei and Yami barged into his office. Hey! What did I say about knocking? Izuku scolded. Sorry. Kei apologized and ran out of the room, closed the door, and then knocked. Izuku couldn't help but smile in slight amusement. Come in. Kei barged back in, not losing a single bit of energy. Hey, Izuku. Can we grow an egg tree? Kei asked. An egg tree, Izuku said, his voice not short of confusion. Yeah. Eri and Kyoku are growing an apple tree. Can we grow an egg tree? Kei asked with stars in her eyes. Izuku winced at having to crush her enthusiasm. Kei, eggs don't come from trees. The eggs you eat come from chickens. The only things you can grow are fruits and vegetables. Oh. Kei deflated with disappointment, her snakes wilting downwards. Can you eat eggs? Yami asked. Some of them. Just the ones you buy. Don't go eating wild eggs. Izuku told Yami before quickly giving his attention back to Kei. We have more than enough eggs for you to eat. I know you don't like fruits and vegetables, but you still do need to eat them to grow up big and strong. So why don't you help Eri grow her apple tree? Kei quickly perked up. Okay. Thanks, Daddy. The snake-haired girl ran out of the room calling for Yami to follow her. Before Yami ran out as well, Izuku spoke. Thank you for going along with her. Izuku gave him a bright, genuine smile as Yami saw his happiness increase. Yami grunted with affirmation. At least he knew for sure he was doing what his father wanted. And that pleased him. With that, Yami followed his sister. At the greenhouse. When the pair entered the greenhouse, they were met by the sight of Eri watering one of the plants. Eri, Three-Eye? Kei shouted, scaring the daylights out of Eri before the poor girl was glomped by her snake-haired sister. Kei, don't scare me like that. Eri teared up slightly. Sorry, Eri. Kei apologized by hugging her even tighter. You're so cute I couldn't help myself. Eri's face turned red at the compliment and covered her face with the watering can. After Kei gushed over her younger sister for a few more minutes, they moved on to why they were here. We've come to help you and Kyoku grow an apple tree. Kei looked around. Hey, where's Kyoku? I thought you two never ever were apart. Eri kept her face hidden by the watering can. As she got tired because she stayed up too late, so Izuku forced her to go to sleep. I wasn't tired, so I stayed here. You should have told me. Don't worry, Eri. I'll make sure you're not lonely. Me and Yami. Kei pointed out Yami, who had been staying silent in the background. Why Yami? Eri stuttered. Yami noticed that after noticing him, the fear inside Eri increased by a not insignificant amount. That combined with her slight trembling led to one obvious conclusion. You're scared of me, Yami stated bluntly. Eri jumped a little as she realized she had been figured out. Eri, are you really afraid of Yami? Kei gasped. She is. I can see it. Yami continued. Why? Eri stuttered as she tried to answer. Is it because I look scary? Yami asked. Izuku made him aware that some people would be off-put by his appearance and by his quirk, as they were seen as scary, which came as more of a relief to him than anything. Most of his siblings were extremely strong, so when he heard that they were apparently above average in terms of power, which was comforting as he was starting to think he was weak. However, if he was also scaring his sister as well, then that would be an issue. And no, Eri quickly denied. Is grim? Yami continued his questioning. Eri wanted to say no, but lying was bad and she didn't like it. So she just stayed quiet. I think it's the Grimm, Kei said. They are pretty scary. Eri muttered something quietly. What? Kei asked, not hearing what she said. It's the bird, Eri admitted, still hiding her face. I don't like the bird. Yami's face contorted in confusion. Nevermore? Is that what Kiba is calling it? Kei asked, receiving a nod. Why don't you like the bird, Eri? I don't like birds. They're scary. And his bird is really scary. Eri confessed. While most of her worst memories were gone, she still remembered Overhaul. And the fear of him still lingered heavily inside her mind. Even now in her nightmares, she'd see a large monstrous blackbird with Overhaul's voice looming over her, speaking words she can't quite remember but that she knows in her heart. Oh, then I just won't make bird anymore. Yami said casually. I don't want to bother you. Eri stuttered. Not bother. Yami shrugged. Don't need bird anymore. Not hunting. Yeah, don't worry about it, Eri. Yami just likes to sit in bed and eat all the food. He doesn't need his giant death bird anymore. Kei said. Yami nodded. There was a moment of silence and Yami noticed the fear in Eri go down very, very slightly. He wasn't sure exactly how to make it go down more. He'd need to ask Izuku about it. Well, now that that's done. Eri, how do we help? Kei asked. I don't really need help. Me and Kyoko already did everything, so there isn't anything to do. Eri explained. I'm sorry. Kei frowned. There has to be something. What if we grow another tree? Twice the trees means twice the apples. Twice the apples? Aries momentarily forgot her fears as daydreams of apples brought drool to her mouth. Yeah. Do you have another seed? Kei asked. Eri nodded and pulled a seed from her pocket. The three of them quickly planted and buried the seed. Now we just need water, Kei said. Eri was about to get the water, but Kei had another idea. Wait. What if we used Yami's grim vomit? Kei wondered. What do you think would happen? Yami thought about that for a moment. He'd never tried something like that before. It'd be interesting to see what happens. I don't know if that's a good idea, Eri said quietly. She was either unheard or ignored as Yami spewed out his grim fluid onto the ground where the apple seed was planted. What was the worst that could happen? Sometime later, Izuku looked at the bizarre sight in front of him. Never in his life had he expected to come face to trunk with an evil apple tree. The tree had grown almost immediately after Yami vomited on it. The bark was stark white and it lacked any leaves. From its branches grew black apples with yellow eyes and mouths. Why? Was the only question Izuku could ask the two children responsible for this abomination. We wanted to see what would happen. Kei shrugged. I think it looks amazing. Kiba, who had come to check out the tree, said. Of course you do. Fu, who had come to make sure Kiba didn't destroy anything, said. Can this thing even do anything? After he said this, Yami decided to check and mentally ordered it to attack Fu. The three then threw one of its apples at Fu, which proceeded to bite into Fu and eat parts of his head. Fu tried to pull the apple off of him, but that proved to be easier said than done, and in the end, Kiba had to pull it off of him. Never mind, it's deadly, Fu said as he regrew most of his skull. Well, we can't keep it here. Yami's Grim didn't have a time limit for how long they could last. They would exist until they were destroyed. Eri spends a lot of time in this place and she's not going to be comfortable with this here. But I don't want it destroyed. Think about it, caretaker. We could have this monster guard someplace like the front of the house. But if we have something like this in front of the house, it'll scare people. Izuku noticed from the kids' looks that they seemed to think that was a good thing. Even the people we want to come in. There was a long pause as all the children and Izuku tried to figure out the best course of action. And then Kei had an idea. Oh, I know. The next day, all the children and Izuku stood out in the front, admiring their hard work. Kiba had pulled it out of the ground and Shiroku and Sanson had brought it around to the front. Kei's idea to make the tree look less intimidating was to add paper leaves to all the branches, hiding all the evil-looking apples. Shiroku was happy to help make it look as pretty as possible, suggesting they paint the leaves all different kinds of colors, giving it a rainbow aesthetic that worked well with the white bark. Of course, Shiroku had ordered her spiders to attach all those leaves, which helped a lot. This turned out very well. Izuku smiled at the children. Good job, all of you. Most of the children cheered, happy to be getting praised for their hard work. And it was just fun. Yami, can you order this tree to protect the house and everyone in it? Izuku asked him. Yami nodded and walked up to the tree. Protect my family? The children cheered once more. I mean, I don't need protection, but it's nice to know I won't always have to get my hands dirty, Kiba said. Don't ruin the mood. Fu scolded her. As the children proceeded to talk, Izuku decided to check on Eri. She was staring at the tree with a cautious look in her. To some that may be a bad thing. However, considering her reaction to the three when it first popped up, that being yelling, running away, and screaming in fear, it was a big improvement. Izuku was just happy there was another thing to help defend the kids. Maybe he should have a few smaller versions of these around the house. I'll ask Yami more about that later. For now, I think I'll stay here and watch. Izuku smiled as he watched the kids climb and play on the tree. Sanson versus clothes. Izuku was just minding his business walking along the halls of his home when he suddenly heard a sound. Or rather, sounds. Snap. Crash. Break. What the? Before Izuku could get to the bottom of this, Shiroku and Sanson burst through the wall next to him. Sanson tried to use her slimy body to restrain Shiroku, but her spider strength and multiple limbs made doing so difficult. On the other hand, Shiroku couldn't really do much to fight back, seeing it's not like she could overpower a liquid. So the two of them were in a strange, unwinnable struggle on both sides. That is until Izuku got over his shock and immediately stepped in. What are you two doing? Izuku shouted as loud as he could. The two froze and looked at Izuku, whose face was bright red. What is this? Why are you fighting? Why did you make a hole in the dash? Izuku stopped when he looked through the hole. It wasn't just the wall they destroyed, they had trashed the entire room. And not only that, judging by the other wall that was destroyed, this was not the only room they fought in. Izuku was mad. Izuku was very mad. Not really about the property damage, although that did upset him, but because the two had been violently fighting across the house. However, he stayed silent for a while. He didn't want to yell at the children too harshly or say something he would regret, so he took a minute to calm himself down. After about 2 minutes of Izuku calming himself and the two children waiting anxiously for his reaction, Izuku turned and spoke to them. Before I decide your punishment, tell me how on earth this happened, Izuku asked with restrained anger. Shiruku looked at the destruction they had accidentally wrought. No clothes, Sanson said, returning to her humanoid form. No clothes? Izuku repeated, getting a nod from Sanson affirming what she said. But she won't even try them. Shiruka protested. No clothes. Sanson shouted even louder. Enough. Izuku shouted, causing the two to stop their bickering immediately. Tell me what happened. Okay, so I made this lovely green dress to match Sanson's blue coloring, but she wouldn't even try it on. Shiruku explained. So I tried to get her to put it on, but then she started running away and I kept trying to get in on her, but then she started pushing me. And I started pushing back and then this happened. Izuku sighed. That was one of the disadvantages of having such powerful children. A mere fight between children that would normally result in as at worst a scraped knee now resulted in several broken walls and many destroyed objects. The greenette thought about the best way to go about this, what to say, what punishments to give, etc. And as he thought, his thoughts leaked out through his mutterings. The two children tried to listen to his muttering to see just how much trouble they were in, but they could barely make out anything he was saying. After a few minutes of muttering, Izuku closed his eyes, took a deep breath before revealing his thoughts. Sanson, you should know better than to shove your sister. Izuku scolded her, making the slime girl melt with shame. You could have come to me if she kept bothering you. You're made of slime, she can't stop you. You chose violence instead. Go to your room. And stay there. For 6 hours. At this point, Sanson was just a puddle and slowly oozed away to her room. And Izuku turned to Shiruku. Well, that wasn't so bad. Maybe it'll be the same for me? Shiruka hoped. Now I know you think that was a light punishment. Shiruku was shocked by how Izuku had basically read her mind. But it's not. Not if you know Sanson well. Izuku kneeled down so he was face to face with her. Have you noticed that Sanson is never in her room? How there's barely anything even in her room? That she's always moving around and changing shape? That even when she's technically standing in one place she's never being still? I guess. Shiruka hadn't really paid attention to it, but whenever she thought of Sanson she always saw her moving around. That's because Sanson hates being still, Izuku explained to her. Sanson is a liquid like water. Water always moves around and changes shape and only stays still if you force it to. Meaning she probably liked that before she got trapped in that jar. Jar? Shizuka questioned. Izuku nodded sadly. The people who took care of Sanson before I didn't like her very much and wanted to get rid of her. So they trapped her in a jar and left her a pile of trash. She was stuck in that jar for a year before we found her. Shizuka's eyes widened in shock and she recoiled back. What? She was stuck in the jar for a year, Izuku repeated. It was only just big enough for her to fit in. She couldn't move around, she couldn't scream for help. She was stuck, doing nothing, for a year. How could someone do that? Shizuku was horrified. It's easily the second worst thing to happen to any of the kids here, Izuku told her. Wait. Second worst? Shizuka shouted. You don't want to know, Izuku told her. But as I was saying, Sanson doesn't like being still and she doesn't like being restrained. That's why she doesn't wear clothes. If she's wearing clothes, she can't shapeshift as freely and she'll be forced to stay in her human form. Do you understand why Sanson doesn't like clothes now? Shiruka nodded sadly. She would still like to teach her sister the joy of clothing, but she can understand that Sanson really didn't want to and she had been too pushy. Even if this wasn't the case, no means no. Just because you have power doesn't mean you can use that power to make people do what you want. With great power comes great responsibility. Izuku told her. Shiruka sulked in shame as she realized the error of her way. I'm sorry. I'm not the one you should be apologizing to. Izuku continued. I'm grounding you. For 3 days I'm taking away your sewing supplies and you're not allowed to watch TV. Shiruka sulked even harder. 3 days with no TV and no making clothes. She hated it, but she knew she got off easy. In the movies she'd watched, some kids got grounded for pushing some or breaking a vase, and they got grounded for like a week. She had broken several rooms and she was getting off with less than half of that. And I want you to make up with your sister before dinner. Izuku finished. The thing that makes me the most upset isn't all the stuff you broke. It's the fact that you two fought. Because even if neither of you hurt each other physically, that doesn't mean you can't hurt each other's feelings. Yes, Daddy, Shizuka said sadly. The spider girl scuttled away and Izuku turned to the mess they made. I'm gonna need to ask a construction company to move nearby, I swear. Izuku sighed as he imagined how many times things like this were going to happen. And then he remembered something. A few minutes later, Sanson heard a knock on her door. Sanson, it's me, Shiruka said on the other side of the door. Sanson ignored it and continued to sulk on her bed. Can I come in? Daddy wants me to talk to you, Shiruka mentioned. Sanson paused for a moment before extending a part of herself and pulling the door open. Shiruka walked in and closed the door behind her. Thank you. Humph. Sanson turned her head away from her, crossing her arms in a huffy manner. No, you can still see me, Shiruka pointed out. Humph. Sanson huffed even louder. Shiruka sighed and approached the slime girl before giving an apologetic bow. I'm sorry I was so pushy earlier. I just love making clothes so much that I got really upset when you said no and tried to force you into doing something you didn't want to do. That was wrong of me. I know you don't like being restricted and I know what you went through. I'm really sorry I tried to force that on you, so please accept my apology. There was a small pause before Sanson turned her head around and brought it right to her face. Kay, Sanson said. Sorry for pushing you. Wait, it's that easy? Shiruku asked. Usually this goes on for longer in movies. Sanson is tired of being mad, Sanson said, moving around her sister constantly. So I forgive. I'm tired of being mad too. Shiruka gave a slight smile. The two of them smiled, their previous problems now water under the bridge. The day has come. Izuku sighed. The day had finally come. The kids had finally earned enough points for them to go to the amusement park, Mighty World. Izuku's favorite and most expensive hero-themed amusement park. So why was Izuku not excited? Because when he made the point system and the reward, he had 4 kids. Now he has 8? Double that number. Not even mentioning all the math he had to do to recalculate the number of points needed to fit having more kids. He would have to take 8 kids to a packed amusement park and keep track of all of them. Of course, he had bought a lot of things to help with this process, GPS trackers he'd put in their clothes and anti-predator alarms and such. But that didn't help Izuku's anxiety. He'd need more people. People he could trust. And the number of people he could trust was limited. His mother was still overseas at the moment, so she was out. And she was only one extra person. All Might was a pro hero and probably had better things to do. Mitsuki might bring her son along and he could not risk that. And that left only Achiko. It was a testament to their friendship that Izuku even managed to get to her speed dial page. Of course, Izuku being Izuku, he was hesitant to call her. What if she was too busy? What if she doesn't want to go? What if I offend her somehow? What if she thinks I'm asking her on a date? Izuku thought about every possible way this could go wrong, almost like he was talking himself out of doing it. However, fate had other plans. As while he wasn't paying attention, his thumb moved slightly and pressed down on the call button. By the time Izuku realized what happened, the dial tone was already playing. AH! Izuku gasped. He was about to end the call, however, Achiko picked up. Hello? Midoriya? Achiko's voice answered. Hi Uraraka? Izuku stuttered nervously. Sorry, I dash. Izuku was about to say that he called her by accident, but this could be his chance to ask. He summoned all his willpower and ignored his flustered blush. I wanted to ask you something. If you don't mind. Depends on what it is, Achiko replied teasingly. Well, you see, I'm going to take the kids to Mighty World, but you know I have a lot of kids and it'd be hard to keep track of them all by myself. So I was wondering if maybe you'd like to help me. Izuku asked her. Oh, Mighty World. I'd love to help and take care of the kids, but I don't have the money. Achiko sounded embarrassed. Oh, don't worry, I'll pay for you. I have more money than I know what to do with now, so I'd be happy to spend it on a friend. Izuku told her. You could even invite some other friends. As long as they help with kids, I'll be more than happy to pay. I couldn't, Achiko responded. But if it helps you out, I guess I could do it. You said I could bring friends, right? Just so long as they're trustworthy, Izuka said nervously. I trust your judgment. Ah, thank you. Achiko replied. I'll only bring my most trustable friends. Sue and Ida. Sue has to take care of a bunch of her little siblings herself, and Ida's brother is a pro hero, so we can trust them. That sounds good, Izuka said. They did at least sound trustable, and if they were friends of Achiko, they could probably be trusted. I'm hoping we can do it on Saturday. That's when the fireworks show is going to happen. Great. I'll see if they can come and call you to tell you their answers. Achiko said. Okay. Bye-bye. Izuka said. Bye, Achiko said before the call ended. Izuku collapsed back into his chair. He felt like he ran a marathon. I did it. Izuka gasped. I invited a girl somewhere. Now all that's left to do was mentally prepare himself for having to go outside and deal with people again. This might have been a mistake. Meeting up. This should be a happy occasion. Fu thought. Yesterday Izuku had told them all that they finally got enough points to go to the amusement park, Mighty World. He laid out all the rules and told each of them to get plenty of sleep. All the kids were lined up at the entrance super pumped and ready to go. Except Eri. So Fu should be excited for them as well. Right? Well, Fu was always more perceptive than his siblings, and it didn't take much to notice that Izuku was sweating bullets. So I did forget to mention one thing before we go. Izuka said nervously. So, you already know this, but there are 8 of you and 1 of me. And given that I can't use cameras to monitor you, I invited some guests to help look after you. The kids had varying reactions to this. Most of the kids didn't seem to mind. However, Eri was a bit apprehensive. And Kyoku was very displeased. Who is it? Shiruku asked. Izuku was about to speak when the door opened behind him. Oh, here they are. In walked Azui, Ida, and Achiko. Hi everyone. Achiko greeted all the children. Ugh. Kyoka groaned, receiving a warning glare from Izuku that kept her line. Achiko. Shiruku and Kei seemed all too pleased about the brunette's appearance. The 2 of them ran forward to meet her and Achiko hugged the 2 children. Who are they? Fu asked, pointing at Ida and Azui. I am Ida Tenya. Ida introduced himself with his signature hand chopping. Pleasure to meet you, young children. Kei gasped. Is he a robot? Achiko stifled a laugh. Why is it that young children always ask me this? Ida said. I can think of a few reasons, Azui remarked. My name is Tsuyu Azui. Please, just call me Tsu. Frog, Yami said simply. Izuka wasn't sure if that was rude or not. Yes, I am in fact a frog, Azui replied bluntly. Thank you all for coming to help. I am Midoriya Izuku. Izuka gave them a polite bow as he introduced himself. Kids, please introduce yourselves. I am Kiba Midoriya, Queen of Eternal Darkness and future ruler over all that is and all that shall be. Kiba was naturally the first to introduce herself. Oh, forgive me for my rudeness, your highness. Azui bowed, playing along with the young girl's fantasy. Kiba held her head up high and smiled. I like this one. I'm Kei Midoriya. Nice to meet you. Kei introduced herself. Sansen Midoriya. Sansen said as she went closer to the 2 of them to inspect them. That's a strange quirk you have, Azui noted, reaching out and touching Sansen, finding the cold, wet feeling pleasant to touch. But you feel really nice. As Azui petted Sansen, Shiruka introduced herself. I am Shiruka Midoriya. Nice to meet you, said the spider girl. Fu Midoriya, Fu said. Yami Midoriya. Yami looked at them curiously. Kyoka Midoriya. Kyoka said begrudgingly. I am Eri, Eri said, hiding behind Izuka's leg. It is a pleasure to meet you all. Ida told them before turning his attention to Izuku. Any you Midoriya? Uraraka has told us much about you. While I question some of your decisions, I admire your heroic intentions. Seeing Izuka getting overwhelmed by Ida's eagerness, Azui decided to step in. Thank you for letting us come with you to Mighty World, Karo. Azui thanked him. Why you're welcome and thank you, Izuka responded to them. We're gonna need to split into 4 groups. 2 kids per teen. I'll take Eri and Kyoku. Eri and Kyoki were the most uncomfortable around others, so it would be best if they went with someone they were more familiar with. Some of the kids pouted as they also wanted to go with Izuku, but they understood why it had to be this way. I want to go with Achiko. Kei stated. Me too, Shiruka said. She had a few questions to ask. I'd be more than happy to take you, Achiko told the two girls. In that case, I will go with the frog girl, Kiba said. Sansan wrapped herself around Ajui's neck like a scarf, something the frog girl didn't object to the slightest. Me too. I'm fine with it, Ajui said. Then I guess me and Yami will go with Ida, Fu said, and Yami grunted in agreement. You need not worry, Midoriya. I will keep them both safe and happy. Ida reassured Izuku. Please do. Thanks. Izuku said awkwardly. Achiko was right, he really doesn't have any social experience. Ajui noted. So I bought a bus. I have a feeling I'm going to need it in the future and I hired a bus driver for today. Izuku said. So I think we should go now. Right? Said a chorus of voices. Overwhelming. After getting inside the park, the kids, and to some extent Achiko and Izuku, were immediately overwhelmed by sights, sounds, and smells. Yami sniffed the air, smelling all sorts of unhealthy yet mouth-watering foods, their aromas floating in the air. Food. What is all this? What's that? No, what's that? What's that? Kay was looking around, pointing at all the different rides. Oh, this place is so much bigger than the park we had back at home. And I got to come here for free. Achiko cheered. Look at all the new hero rides. Oh, they changed the free fall from Gigantus to MT Lady. Izuku was looking at the rides but for a different reason from the kids. Where do you kids want to go first? Ajui asked. Food. Yami shouted out immediately. Rides. Shouted Kei, Sansan, Kiba, Shiruku, and Kyoka said. Ida looked at Fu. Would you also like to go on the rides? Yami wants to go eat the food, so I agree with him and say we should go to the food stalls, Fu said. What a polite child. Ida looked at the rest of the group. If that is the case, then we shall split from the group. We'll split too, I'll take these two to the bumper carts and we'll see what happens after that, Achiko said. Then it's just me and Midoriya's group, Su said. Alright, let's go. Which ride? After separating from the others, Izuku and Ajui now had to decide what type of ride to take the kids on. I'm not sure taking them on the fast rides first is a good idea, Ajui said. Huh? Why not? Kiba pouted. Ajui pointed at Eri and Kyoku, who were looking at the big roller coasters with a little bit of fear. Well, not everyone can be as courageous as me, I suppose. Fine. Let us start with an appetizer. Kiba sighed. But please nothing too boring. Izuku looked around. Well, the big roller coasters are out of the question for now. Wash's teacups? How about the teacups? Izuku suggested. Kiba seemed skeptical, but seeing as everyone else agreed, she just decided to go with it. The line wasn't too bad. Probably because people weren't exactly dying to go on the teacups of all rides. Once they got to the front and were about to go in, Izuku remembered something. The teacups rotated by moving the circle in the middle around. And Kiba had natural absurd strength. Izuku spoke to the person letting them in. She has a mutant strength-enhancing quirk. The employee said. Then they'll need to go into the gray cup. That one is made to withstand that type of thing. Oh, thank you, Izuku said. I'll go in with them, Ajui said. Are you sure about that, MS? The employee asked. That thing can go rather fast with strength quirks powering it. I'm a hero in training, I think I can handle it, Ajui said. A few seconds later, Ajui could not handle it. Eri and Kyoki were having fun turning their teacup with Izuku. Izuku, however, was just silently apologizing to poor Ajui and Sansan. With Kiba pushing at full strength, the teacup she was in spun violently, turning into a blur. Kiba was having the time of her life, while Sansan had turned into goo girl soup at the bottom of the cup, no longer able to keep her physical form with the sheer amount of pressure hitting her body. I'm not sure what's worse. This or Aizawa-sensei's training. Ajui was greener than normal, trying her hardest not to vomit out her breakfast. Good thing she was a hero in training because no one else would have been able to hold it in for the minutes of hell she went through. And once she got off the ride, she proceeded to empty out her stomach into a garbage can to the sounds of Izuku's apologies and Kiba's laughing. Bored? Yami was in heaven. Melon pan, dorayaki, cotton candy, and many more unhealthy foods. All for him to devour. Please pace yourself. Eating too fast will cause you to choke. Ida scolded him. And do try not to eat so many unhealthy things at once. Meanwhile, Fu was just standing there quietly. The same bored expression on his face as always. Fu, you do not seem to be enjoying yourself. Ida noticed. While I do not normally encourage the consumption of unhealthy foods, today is a day of merriment. Why not indulge in snack foods like your brother? I can't taste things, Fu stated. Ah, I see. Ida thought for a moment. Well, then perhaps you would like to pick the first ride. I can't feel anything either. Meaning that going on rides would basically feel the same as floating still in midair. Fu explained. So you can't taste anything of the food nor can you feel excitement from any of the rides. Ida summarized. Forgive me if I sound rude, but it doesn't seem like amusement parks are all that exciting for you. Would you have rather not stayed home and done something else? No. Fu answered instantly. I hate being alone. Ah, I understand loneliness is a terrible thing. But still, would being alone for a few hours really be so bad as compared to going someplace you don't enjoy? Ida asked. I'm sure you could find something you occupy yourself. Fu shook his head. You really don't get it. It's not just that I can't feel things physically. My emotions are also muted. Meaning feeling things is pretty hard too. When I'm by myself, it doesn't just feel like I'm alone, it feels like I don't even exist. I don't have a presence or a strong personality, so I just feel nothing when I'm by myself. Books can help with this, but they can't replace a real person's presence and personality. Ah, I see. Ida thought about the child's words and what kind of an existence he must have had. That sounds rather unfortunate. It is, Fu responded, looking down at his hand. I hate my quirk. I can barely remember what it was like before I got it. But I still miss it. I wish I could feel the ground as I walked. I wish I could feel people's warmth when they hugged me. I wish I could taste food again. But I can't. And I never will. Ida didn't quite know how to respond. He'd heard of people whose quirks seemed to harm the user more than anything else. He briefly read some of these cases and they were typically horrifying. Their quirks seemed more like diseases than anything else. Diseases that no one could cure and that they would have to live with for the rest of their lives. The two of them stood in awkward silence for a while, just watching Yami eat. Eventually, Fu spoke up again. Sorry for making this depressing. No, it's fine. I am the one who accidentally brought the conversation onto that topic. Ida reassured him. Still, while I do not envy you for the quirk you have, at the very least you can be thankful that because of your quirk you have found family and friends that I'm sure bring you joy despite your muted emotions. Fu thought for a moment before nodding. That's true. If I didn't get my quirk, I probably would have stayed with my mom. And given that I hate her more than my quirk, I'm glad I ended up with Izuku and the others. Fu cracked a small smile. Living in a house full of interesting people. And getting to see them all smile and have fun, it makes my quirk not so bad to live with. Also, Ida, I'm not bored. Watching you is more fun than anything here. Thank you, Fu. I will do my best to entertain you for the duration of this trip. Ida swore, chopping the air with added curiosity. Please do, Fu smirked. Girl talk. That was so much fun. Kay was super happy, jumping around with a huge smile on her face after just getting off Endeavor's Trial of Fire, a big roller coaster. It was okay. Shiruka didn't have the best experience. Rides like that weren't exactly made for girls with the lower halves of spiders, so she kinda had to cram herself into the seat. Safe to say it wasn't the most comfortable of experience for her. Oh man, I remember the first time I went on a roller coaster. It's just as good as I remember. Achiko was suddenly overwhelmed by nostalgia. Her family wasn't well off by any means. Their business was struggling, so they always had to use their money wisely. Despite this, her parents still managed to save up enough money to bring her to an amusement park. It was one of her most treasured memories and one of the reasons she needed to pay them back. One of the many reasons. Ms. Achiko, can we go get some ice cream? Shiruku asked. Can I have pudding? Kay asked. Achiko giggled at their adorable excitement. Okay, we can get you your treats. One stop later. After getting their respective treats, Achiko even found Machi nearby. The three of them sat down on a nearby bench. The two children looked at each other, confirming now was the perfect time to ask the question. Are you gonna be our mom? Kay asked her. Achiko proceeded to choke on her food. After taking a few seconds to stop choking, Achiko responded. What? Her face was bright red as she immediately understood the implication of what they just asked. Are you gonna marry our dad? Shiruka clarified anyway. And no. Achiko waved her hands in front of her, immediately denying what the children had suggested. Me and Izuku are just friends. That face. It's exactly like the movies. They're definitely gonna get together. Shiruka squealed. Achiko remembered Izuku telling her that Shiruku grew up completely isolated, with her only window into the outside world being movies and TV shows, meaning she tended to look at life like it was a TV show. Listen, a boy and a girl can just be friends. It's not like in the movies. Achiko right now cursed the enormous amount of movies that had to have the male and female get together just because. And me and Izuku are just really good friends. They say that in the movies too. Shiruku had stars in her eyes. Curse you self-aware movies. Achiko was trying really hard to think of something to say that didn't sound like it was straight out of a rom-com, but that was harder than it sounded. Then she remembered something vital. I'm more the childhood friend type, Achiko said. This actually made Shiruku stop. Achiko breathed a sigh of relief. The childhood friend never ends up the protagonist. This should get the message across. Unknown to Achiko, Shiruku got a message alright, but not the one Achiko wanted to give her. The message Achiko wanted to give her was, we're just friends. The message Shiruku actually got was, I'm desperately in love with him, but I don't stand chance. Shiruku was well aware that the childhood friend never got together with the protagonist, and this was something that deeply bothered her. Don't worry, Achiko, I help you with everything I have. Shiruku silently swore. Meanwhile, Kei was just confused at the sudden silence. Contest. Azui and her group had split up from Izuku's group due to his insistence. He wanted to take them on the merry-go-round, and he thought that Kiba and Sanson might not find that exciting. Seeing all the carnival games, Kiba had an idea. Oh, dear sister. I have an idea. Kiba announced to Sanson. You and I shall compete to see who can win the most carnival games. And our dear frog friend Azui shall be there to judge. Oh. Sanson got excited before making a very competitive face. Yeah. Alright if you say so. Just don't get upset if you lose. Azui warned her. Ha! Kiba crossed her arms and put on her smuggest look. As if I would lose? Sometime later. Kiba was pouting very heavily as they walked. She was losing. Really badly. The first game they played was whack-a-mole. And while Kiba could move quite fast, at the end of the day she only had 2 arms and 2 eyes, while Sanson could have as many arms as she felt like, and her entire body was one giant eye. Meaning that she easily dominated that game. The next was ring toss. While Sanson had no advantage here, the person running the stall wouldn't exactly let her extend her arms over to the bottles. Kiba had a big disadvantage. That being her strength. With her abundant strength, Kiba overshot basically every throw she made, and for once, okay for the 1000th time, but she would never admit it, she wished she had more restraint training. The hoop toss was the same problem. Except Sanson actually did a lot better on that one, so it was even more embarrassing. And so now here they were, walking through the park looking for their next game. Sanson was holding all their prizes with many arms, most of them were hers, and they were quite large stuffed animals. How can I be losing? And in such humiliating fashion. This cannot stand. I must find something where my strength can be used to my advantage. Kiba thought. Then she looked up and saw it. The Mighty Hero Test of Strength. Unlike your ordinary test of strength, this one was easily taller than the average building. And one could only barely see the text at the top. Well, how convenient. Kiba thought with a smile. That one. I want to do that one next. Azui looked at the game. It did seem like that kind of game that weighed the odds in Kiba's favor, but given that she was losing 3-0 right now, she could use an easy win. Sure. Let's go. Azui said. The 3 of them walked up to the game and the person managing it welcomed them. Welcome, young ladies. Step right up and test your strength at the Mighty Hero Test of Strength. The man said. You're welcome to try, but this was made to stand up to even the strongest of strength quirks. Well, it just so happens I have the strongest strength quirk. Kiba boasted. Well then just take that hammer and hit that little target right there, and let's see just how strong you are. The man said. Kiba was about to go up and take the hammer when a thought occurred. Ms. Azui. Kiba turned to her babysitter. May I suck some of your blood? Excuse me. Azui asked, taken aback. My quirk requires that I drink blood to be at full strength. Caretaker normally does not allow me to be at full power, as I would break the world around me should that happen, Kiba explained. Ah, I see. Azui thought about it. The vampire girl did seem to have a fragile ego, and she did really need this win. Alright. Just try not to take too much, Karo. Azui leaned down and Kiba sank her fangs into her neck. It was like getting a shot. Something Azui had never been afraid of. It was just a small prick after all. After a few moments of sucking, "Don't you dare," Kiba took her teeth out of Azui. "At last! My full power!" Kiba flexed her muscles. "Now allow me to display the might of the great Kiba." Kiba took the hammer, lifted it over the head, and smashed it on the target as hard as she could. Smash! Ring! The metal ball flew up into the air, flying higher and higher until it hit the bell. Kiba smirked. She knew she could do it. The man managing the thing was sure impressed as well. "Wow! You weren't lying, little lady. I haven't seen the ball go that high in years," the man said with wide eyes. "You gonna be a hero when you grow up? Because if so, you're gonna make it to the top 10 to be sure." Kiba took in the praise. "Of course. I'll be number 1 without a doubt." Meanwhile, Sanson had taken the hammer. She backed up farther and farther until she was a good distance from the target. Then she turned her body into a giant hand and picked up the hammer with it. And then she raised the hammer high into the sky. Higher, 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 and higher, Sanson kept extending herself with the hammer reaching past the machine and going even higher. All the people down below gawked at how high Sanson was going. And Azui realized just what the slime girl was attempting to do. "Everyone move," Azui told them. When Sanson reached maximum height, she forced the hammer down, letting both her own elasticity and gravity bring the hammer down faster and faster until thwash! The hammer was brought down onto the target, breaking both it and the hammer. The metal ball shot up way faster than when Kiba hit it, not only hitting it but knocking the bell and the ball off the machine and into the air. Seconds later they came crashing down, embedding themselves into the floor with a crash. Everyone just stood still in stunned silence. Except for Sanson, who was pulling herself back together after the force of the impact pulled her apart. "I win," Sanson said simply. Kiba, after getting over her shock, teared up before running away. Azui wanted to go after her, but the girl was about as fast as she was strong and was out of sight the moment the frog girl took her eyes off her. Siyu sighed. "This is what Midoriya has to put up with every day. I don't envy him." Say what you want about her siblings, they couldn't destroy buildings. A few minutes later, Kiba wiped the tears from her eyes. "Why? Why couldn't I win?" After running away, Kiba sat herself down on a bench in the most isolated part of the park she could find. "I am the vampire queen of darkness. How could I lose so completely and utterly?" Kiba kept crying as the very few people around her moved away due to discomfort. After a minute, she felt someone sit next to her. She looked up to see who it was. It was Izuku. "The caretaker?" Kiba corrected herself. "You can call me Dad," Izuku told her. "Azui called me and told me what happened. I was very worried when she told me you ran off on your own." "Great. I worry, Dad. I somehow found a way to fail even more." Kiba scolded herself. Izuku affectionately rubbed her head and moved himself closer to her. "You're upset that you lost." "And no," Kiba denied, trying her best to stop crying as she found it embarrassing. "I just had something in my eye and I ran around looking for a eye cleaner." "Kiba," Izuku said with a hint of seriousness. "Don't lie to me." Kiba was silent for a moment before bursting out into a frustrated whine. "Rah! How could I have lost so bad? I didn't win a single game. Not one. Me, Kiba, the queen of eternal darkness. And I lost completely. She even beat in strength. I was humiliated." Izuku put his arm around her to comfort her, allowing her to sink into his side. "It's okay. Losing doesn't mean you're humiliated or that you're bad or weak or anything like that. Everyone loses eventually. It just means you have to improve." "I improve," Kiba repeated. "Yeah. If your throw is off, then you just need to improve your aim. If you don't think you're strong enough, then you just need to improve your body," Izuku told her. "Being the best means you have to work very hard. Sanson trains almost every day on how to use her quirk. That's why she's so strong. So if I trained more, I could have beat her?" Kiba sniffled. Sanson has a big advantage with her quirk in these kinds of games. Whereas you have a disadvantage." Izuku analyzed. However, he stopped when he realized Kiba's mood had dipped again. "But that's fine. Some people are inherently better at some things than others. Like you're a lot stronger than Sanson. But she beat me at the strength game." Kiba protested. "But not with natural strength," Izuku pointed out. "She used gravity and her stretchiness to win. That requires a lot of time and space. Sanson can't do a lot in small spaces, remember?" Kiba thought back. "Yeah, she got trapped in a jar." "That's right. Sanson isn't stronger than you, her quirk is just very versatile." Izuku continued to explain. You both have your strengths and weaknesses. While Sanson may be able to hit something harder than you using her quirk right now, you'll get stronger as you grow up and train. A lot stronger. But Sanson won't. Sanson can't grow older or work out her body. She can learn how to use her quirk in new ways to seem stronger, but physically this is as strong as she gets. The more Kiba thought about it, the less she cried and the more determined she got. I can get stronger. I can beat her. Izuku smiled, seeing the despair vanish from his daughter's face, only to be replaced by the fires of determination. Still, he would have to temper this fire. Even if you lose, never give up. And don't be a sore loser. Accept your defeat and work to get stronger, so next time you'll win. Izuku told her. Right? Kiba shouted, standing up proudly. I will never despair again. No matter how many times I may lose, I will always come back, stronger than I was before. Until I'm at the very top. Izuku got up and smiled at her. That's right. But first, let's go apologize to Azui and Sanson for worrying them. Kiba's spirit dampened just a little. Ah, yes. Bonding over a fire, the fire that is the roasting of Katsuki Bakugo. That was amazing, Daddy. The ponies were so fun. Kyoka giggled. Izuku laughed along with her, ignoring the looks he was getting from people around him. He already knew that he'd get strange looks from people when one of his kids referred to him as father or dad or daddy or something like that. He didn't blame them. He knew he would do the same thing in their position. It was fun, Eri added. Where do you two want to go next? Izuku asked them. Something fun. Kyoka said. Not scary. Izuku thought hard about this. There weren't many slow rides that they hadn't gone on by now. Except, how about the Ferris wheel? Izuku asked them, pointing at the ride in question. Is it too high for you two? Both of them looked hesitant, but Kyoka swallowed her fear and nodded her head and held Eri's hand. I want to go. Eri? Eri wasn't sure. It was very high up, but she didn't want to stop her sister from having fun. Okay. Are you sure it's not too high? Asked Izuku again after seeing their hesitation. We're sure. Kyoka repeated. After waiting a few moments to see if they would take that back, Izuku agreed. One short walk later. As Izuku approached the line for the Ferris wheel, he was surprised to see that Achiko, Kei, and Shiruku were waiting there as well. Oh! Izuku! Achiko called out after noticing them. Uraraka, you guys wanted to go on the Ferris wheel too? Izuku asked. Yeah. I want to see what it's like from up there. Kei gushed. I want to see if it's like being on top of the house, Shiruka said. What a coincidence that we both wanted to go at the same time. Achiko laughed. Or fate, Shiruka muttered. Well, Izuku stopped as his phone suddenly started ringing. He took it out of his phone and saw that it was Azui calling, and instantly he became worried. They had exchanged phone numbers in case anything went wrong, and he doubted that getting a phone call from her right now was a good thing. He picked up as fast as he could. Azui! Did something go wrong? Kiba did what? I'll look for her right now. Izuku hung up the phone and looked at Achiko. Can you watch these two for a little bit? Huh? Did something happen? Achiko asked with great concern, the kids becoming concerned as well. Azui lost sight of Kiba. I have to go look for her right now. Izuku started running away to look for Kiba. Sorry Kyoku, Eri. I'll take you on the ride when I get back. Before anyone could say anything to him, he was gone. Oh. I hope Kiba's alright, Achiko said. She would have liked to look for her too, but running around with these kids would probably lead to losing sight of at least one of them. Next, called the employee in charge of the Ferris wheel. Do you guys want to go on, or should we wait until Izuku gets back? Achiko asked them. There was a pause as the children thought about it. Surprisingly, it was Kyoku that spoke first. Ms. Achiko, can I go with you on the Ferris wheel? Kyoku asked her. Achiko was shocked. It was no secret that Kyoka didn't like her very much, so why would she want to go with her on the Ferris wheel? Still, Achiko wouldn't look a gift horse in the mouth. Maybe this would be the chance she needed to get along with the girl. Sure. Achiko agreed before addressing the rest of the kids. Okay kids. Make sure to stay right here. Keep your alarms ready if any sketchy people try to come up to you. And don't talk to strangers. A few seconds later, after the two of them got in, they sat in silence until the ride started up again and they were lifted into the air. Come on, Achiko, think. What can I say that would get me on her good side? Achiko contemplated. However, Kyoka spoke first. What are you trying to do with my daddy? Ha! Achiko responded. Are you trying to seduce my daddy and break his heart? Kyoku accused, glaring very intensely at the hero in training. What? Achiko's face went bright red once again. This was somehow worse than Shiruka's accusation. Shiruka says you and daddy like each other like lovers. But I don't trust you. Kyoka said. I think you're just trying to seduce him so you can break his heart and hurt him. Why Wano? Achiko was not ready for such bizarre and outlandish claims, as such she could barely defend herself beyond basic denial. You're probably planning something horrible with that bastard Bakugo. Kyoku continued, in fact, you're probably dating him. Achiko gagged. What? You know. As if I would ever go out with that sweaty ball of anger issues and insecurity. Kyoka paused, giving Achiko a skeptical look. As much as she hated to admit it, her reaction seemed genuine. Prove it. Let me see your memories. Achiko hesitated. She didn't like the idea of someone looking through her memories. But at the same time, she didn't want Kyoku to feel uncomfortable whenever she was there. Suddenly, she came up with an idea. Okay, I'll let you look through my memories, but only very specific ones. Achiko told her. Specific ones? Kyoka gave her yet another dirty look. What are you planning? Nothing. It's not like I can change my memories, can I? Achiko argued. I just want you to look at the memories of my first day at UA. Please? Kyoka didn't like this. She didn't like this one bit. But she was giving her permission to look at her memories, and memories didn't lie. Achiko lowered her head, and hesitantly Kyoka reached out and put her hands on her head. It took a few seconds for Kyoku to find it, but eventually she saw what she was looking for. Achiko's first day at UA. Oh, she was meeting Bakugo. Oh, those were some very bad words. Oh, she didn't like him at all. Kyoku continued looking at her memories with a growing smile on her face as she watched Bakugo get absolutely disrespected while he could do nothing about it. Eventually, Kyoka started laughing and took her hands off of her head. He looks like an angry dog. Kyoka laughed. I know, right? Achiko agreed. He's like a big dog tied to a pole. He looks and sounds scary because he can't actually do anything. And he barks too. Kyoka continued to laugh. As the two of them were laughing, Achiko got an idea. Do you think that hair and those eyes are real? Or maybe he just thinks they look cool. Achiko dissed. He seems edgy and insecure enough to do that. Kyoka didn't even fully understand what that meant, but she knew it was a diss against Bakugo, and so she found it amusing. It looks like he uses his explosions to do his hair. Kyoku continued. The two of them continued to roast Bakugo for the remainder of the ride, laughing all the way. In the end, Achiko figured out that the best way to bond with an angry little girl is to take turns insulting someone you both really don't look at. Looks like Bakugo was good for something after all. When they got off, Achiko and Kyoki were laughing, much to the surprise of the kids and Izuka, who had returned by then. Ha! Izuka had never seen Kyoka laugh and smile like that with someone outside the family. What happened up there? Achiko and Kyoka looked at each other for a moment before Achiko responded. Sorry, Izuku. That's our secret. Achiko figured that despite being happy they were getting along, he wouldn't be very happy how they managed to get along. So it would be their secret for now. Farewell until we meet again. Once the sun started going down, the teens noticed the kids starting to get tired. Well, the ones that could get tired were, and decided it was almost time to leave. After calling each other, they all met up near the entrance. That's a lot of prizes, Fu said the moment he saw Sanson. Yami noticed a small spike in Kiba's negative emotions after that was said before it went back down. Some of those are mine. Kiba butted in. Well, we had a goldfish. Shiruka glared at Kei. Emphasizes on had. Kei giggled nervously and shrugged. Sorry. Have you all had a sufficient amount of fun? Ida shouted. Yeta! Shouted Kiba and Sanson. Most of the other children also said yeah, but were too tired to scream it. Kiba was tired too, but she still found the energy to shout. And Fu was just Fu. Good. Now it's time to return home. Ida shouted. Alwu. Groaned some of the kids. Don't act like most of you aren't tired, Karo. If you keep going like this, you're going to fall asleep in the park. Ajui said. Fui. I can dash. Kiba's objection was stopped by a sudden yawn coming from her mouth. Keep going. Izuka shook his head. The park is going to close in a few hours anyway. We can come here again some other time, I promise. That promise seemed to stop any more objections from coming out of the children, as they all seemed to realize just how tired they were. Do you guys want to stay for dinner? Izuku asked Ajui, Ida, and Achiko. I would be honored. But unfortunately, I need to be back home by a certain time in order to properly integrate myself back into my schedule. Ida said. My parents want me back at a certain time too, Karo, Azui said. I still need to do my homework, Achiko said sheepishly. Well, then I guess this is goodbye then, Izuka said. It was nice meeting you too. You were fun to be around, Ida, Fu said. Thank you for coming with us, Ms. Achiko. Kei said. Thank you. Sanson wrapped Azui in a hug which the frog girl returned. You're welcome, Karo, Azui said. Hey, before we go, we should take a picture, Achiko suggested. Oh, that's a great idea, Izuka said. Sanson can stretch out her arm and take it with my phone. Well then let us commemorate this occasion with a photograph. And swiftly, Ida said. And so they moved around in front of the statue of All Might. Izuka was pushed to the front with Achiko right next to him, much to their embarrassment. Kyoku, Eri, and Kei were in between their legs. Kiba wanted to look impressive and was lifting both Fu and Yami over her head while Shiruku, who stood next to her, rolled her eyes. Ida and Azui stood at the opposite ends. Lastly, Sanson got up on both Izuku and Achiko's shoulders and stretched out her arm up and away from all of them until she could get a good angle. Cheese, Sanson said. Cheese. Everyone else repeated. Click. Hours later, Izuka smiled happily at his phone from his desk in his office. With most of the children asleep, he finally takes a moment to breathe. I should hang this somewhere. Izuka thought about putting it on his desk, but then he looked at the walls of his office. This will be the first of many. Izuka thought confidently. So maybe I should make a wall commemorating all these memories. Izuka imagined it. A wall filled with the best memories of him and his kids. Each photo contained more and more kids as more and more were added to his family. He couldn't help but smile at the thought. And then Nami texted him and his smile disappeared. Hey, Izuku. Long time no see. Since you handled 2 kids at once so easily, we thought we would really test you and give you 3 kids at once. You know, plus Ultra and all that. Don't worry, they're not coming tomorrow. I'm giving you 3 days notice. Hope you're ready to meet them. Also, we're sending you the paperwork tomorrow. Have fun. 3 kids. At once. 3 kids at once. Suddenly Izuku was hyper-aware of just how tired he was. The work of a parent never ends. Izuka steeled himself. But I should probably go to bed before I pass out. Izuka managed to make it to the bed before passing out, knowing tomorrow he would have a lot of work to do. Hello there. My name is Fu Midoriya. It wasn't always that, but that's what it is now. After seeing my father's journals, I thought it might be fun to write down everything about my siblings, their personalities, and their quirks. After all, I'm surrounded by such interesting people, I'd be ashamed not to. Izuka Midoriya. Izuka is my dad. He took me and Kiba, more on her later, in and gave us a place to stay and things to eat. He made sure my quirk would never act up again. I can never repay him for all he's done. Not that he'd want me to. Aside from his green hair and freckles, he's rather plain looking. Izuku is the nicest person to ever exist. He holds no grudges, does not judge anyone, and rarely ever gets angry. He only ever seems to get upset when something harms someone he cares about. Or in some of my siblings' cases, when they harm themselves. He only really grounds us if we hurt each other or ourselves. Of course, that means I've never got in trouble with him. That also means I don't get much of his attention. But that's fine. He's very busy. He's in charge of taking care of all the kids that fall under the title of OPC, basically all the most dangerous children in the country whose parents don't want them. As you can imagine, it's a hard job. Made harder by his trust issues keeping him from hiring anyone to help him. The fact he keeps stumbling upon kids by accident in weird situations with dangerous powers makes things, well, either better or worse, I can't fully tell. Dad is quirkless. Meaning he has no quirk whatsoever. Naturally, the world did what it normally does to people who are different. They mistreated and abused him. But like I said, he's the nicest person ever, so he's not angry about it. Although that doesn't mean I'm not. Kiba Midoriya. Kiba may have only become my official sister after Dad took us in, but honestly it feels like we've been siblings for much longer. She found me trying to steal food and helped me in exchange for my blood. After she found out about my quirk, she insisted that I become one of her minions. She was better company than no company at all, so I agreed. Best decision of my life. Kiba has long silver hair and red eyes. Her skin is very pale and she has long pointy fangs. She always wears a red cloak she and Dad made. Kiba is, at the best of times, obnoxiously loud, overly full of herself, and very simple-minded. But somehow she takes all those bad traits and makes them into good ones most of the time. Imagine watching a cheesy actor play Dracula. That's how she acts all the time. She insists that she is the vampire queen of eternal darkness and that she will someday take over the world. How's she gonna do that? No one knows. Not even her. She's very entertaining to watch, and given how much she loves attention, that's a good thing. Unfortunately, she does have a fragile ego and can't stand losing or the idea of losing. But I think Dad is trying to do something about that. Another thing Dad tried to improve is her habit of breaking things. Kiba is very strong, and while she's not dumb, she's not exactly smart either, despite what her vocabulary would lead you to believe. This leads to her breaking a lot of things. A lot of things. Dad's very forgiving of this, of course, so she doesn't really get grounded. But whenever she destroys something big, he puts her through an hour of restraint training. Kiba's quirk is called Blood Boost. The more blood she intakes, the stronger, faster, and more durable she gets. At full power, she can outrun some cars and lift cars with ease. However, the more active she is, the more blood is used up, and she needs blood to live. So she needs to be careful about how much she strains herself. Kiba's main weakness, Bedsy's lack of blood, is the sun. Not because of her quirk, Kiba was dedicated to her act that she avoided to the sun for too long, and now her body isn't used to it. I did mention she wasn't that smart, didn't I? Eri Midoriya. Eri is the most mysterious out of any of us. Her backstory is almost a complete mystery to everyone but Izuku and Kyoku, more on her later. And I do mean everyone but those two. Apparently it was so bad that they had to make her forget about most of it. From what we do know, Eri's quirk went out of control and accidentally killed her father. Her mother abandoned her and gave her to a really bad man who was in charge of a group of really bad men who did bad things to her. Izuku saved her. She was the first of the kids that Izuku adopted. Eri has white hair and red eyes, with her only other notable feature being her horn. Eri is extremely shy and prefers to stay quiet and out of the way most of the time. This means that most people don't notice her or hear her over the louder kids. Dad wants me to make sure this doesn't happen, but it's hard. Eri's quirk lets her rewind things back to a previous state. Basically, she can return things back to how they were before. Like if you ate an apple, she could take the apple core and turn it back into an apple. This quirk is really cool, but it also has two big downsides. The first one is that she gets really tired if she uses it for too long. And the second is that it's really hard to control, and the consequences if something goes wrong can be disastrous. Like that time she rewound her father to before he existed. Which makes no sense to me. If she can bring something back to how it was then, how can she bring something back to when it never was? But anyway, she could accidentally make you younger or turn you into a monkey. Apparently it's because of something called evolution, or take your quirk away. Izuku and her train twice a week so she can better control it. He uses a metal ruler. Eri's quirk can't affect non-living things, so he doesn't have to touch her, and he has a trank gun, a gun that shoots needles that puts you to sleep in case things go bad. As dangerous as her quirk is, it could also be used to save a lot of people. She could heal a person about to die back to full health, reattach lost limbs, cure incurable diseases. She would be a great doctor. Eri seems to have a strong fear of birds. Eri's quirk seems to come from her horn. The longer her horn is, the more powerful her quirk is. Eri seems to hate herself a little because of her quirk. I know how that feels. We all want to protect her. I hope we can. I hope someday we can make her smile. Kei Midoriya. Once upon a time I thought Kiba was the most energetic person in the world. Then I met Kei. If I didn't know what Kei's quirk was, I would have guessed it was infinite energy because she is always active. She is also very optimistic, which is strange because the world, Natali, treated her terribly. She has snakes for hair and snake-like eyes, so naturally people thought she looked a bit scary. And instead of just getting over it, her parents kicked her out and everyone called her a freak and a monster. Her quirk didn't help. Anyone who looks at her eyes turns to stone. Powerful, hard to fight against, really inconvenient to live with. She can't turn it off either, so she just had to live a life of trying to never stare people in the eyes for a while. Then a villain kidnapped her and used her as a living weapon for some time until Izuku saved her and took her in. The way she approaches her life in an upbeat, positive attitude is really admirable in my opinion. A lot of people like to complain about their lives, she just tries to improve hers. Anyway, back to her quirk. The effect of her quirk lasts exactly 1 day or 24 hours. During the entire process, the victim is completely immobile as well as being made of stone, meaning it is rather easy to harm or kill them. According to Izuku, when you're frozen you don't see or hear anything, and when you're unfrozen you basically continue where you left off. The snakes on her hair are also interesting. They aren't poisonous, but they can bite you. Kei has said that they're technically alive, they're extensions of herself. Maybe they're multiple personalities? Either way, it's a simple but effective quirk. Although Kei hasn't shown any interest in using them and has a special face thing to keep herself from using them. It's probably a good thing, but still I just can't stop thinking about the possibilities. Sansen Midoriya. Sansen is the weirdest member of our family right now. I think I'll have to start with her quirk here, otherwise nothing else will make sense. Sansen is a sentient pile of acidic goo, able to move and change her shape completely. Now that I think about it, I call her a she, and she takes the form of a girl, but she could be either one if she wanted to. Was she born a girl, or did she just choose to be one at one point? Back to what I was saying. She was born with her quirk and accidentally killed her mother when she was born because acid. Her family didn't want her and threw her around from person to person, and of course they mistreated her because no one in this house can have a non-tragic backstory. To make it worse, one particularly bad family member stuffed her in an acid-proof jar and threw her into a trash heap, where she stayed for a year until Izuku found her. Easily the worst backstory I've heard. Eri doesn't count because I haven't heard hers. Sansen is tied with Kei for being the most energetic in the house. Sansen hates being still, probably because of the whole jar thing, and will move around constantly, typically shape-shifting her body in all sorts of different ways. Sansen actually does want to be a hero, like me and Kiba, and trains herself every day. She's probably the most powerful person in the house right now. Any physical attacks just don't affect her at all, and she's made of acid, so anything she touches she can melt, although Sansen is filled with a special chemical that makes her acid non-acidic most of the time. It also changes her color to blue. She can change her size at will and stretch herself too. And she can use her elasticity to power up her attacks to be even more powerful than Kiba. She's also strong in the water. She can move the water around with her body and shoot it out like a firehouse. And she can swim really well. She doesn't need to breathe, sleep, or eat, and she can't run out of stamina. She could almost definitely take on everyone in this house. Except Kei. Although she does have some weakness. If you can trap her in something small, sturdy, and acid-proof, she won't be able to get out. And like I mentioned earlier, Kei definitely beats her. Sansen can know her entire body, so being even in the same room as Kei makes it impossible for her not to be turned to stone. And she also seems weak to cold. Seems like she can be frozen like water. Although we don't know how cold it has to be to freeze her. I don't know how she interacts with electricity though, not too dangerous. Kyoka Midoriya. It's actually kind of funny how she came into the family. Her old family used to treat her poorly, so when she saw our loving family, she got jealous, broke into our house, and used her quirk to make us think she was always part of our family. Of course she got caught and Izuku accepted her anyway. She could have probably just asked and Izuku would have accepted her. Kyoka has purple hair but otherwise is pretty normal. Kyoka is very distrustful of people. Which makes sense. Her quirk lets her see and change people's memories. And she's looked through all of ours and her old parents' memories and Aries, meaning she's seen a lot of bad people do very bad things. According to Kyoka, her quirk is like looking through a movie. She can pause, rewind, fast forward, and watch it through like a movie. All she has to do to change it is remove it and replace it with something she imagines. She could change your entire life in only a few hours. Make you believe you're someone else. Something else even. Most of the kids here are powerful because of what they can do to you physically. But Kyoka is different. I know why they're afraid of her. She could make heroes think of their villains. Turn normal people into monsters. Make people see horrors and think they went through them. The damage she could do in the wrong hands. The other kids don't really understand this. As far as they're concerned, she's the weakest of everyone. Even Kyoka doesn't know how dangerous she is really. Only me and Dad know. Of course there are limits. If she creates a memory that makes no sense or contradicts itself or reality, then the person's memories will return to how they were before. Example. When she changed all our memories and added herself into everything, she forgot that the pictures would still show her not in those memories, so when we saw the pictures, our memories were restored. Note, the person may or may not keep the fake memories, depending on how much space their memory has. Another thing that affects her quirk is space. A person's memory has so much space, so she can only add so many fake memories without having to take out some real ones. According to Kyoku, the amount of memory a person has depends on their age. Which makes sense. Shiruka Midoriya. Shiruku is the first kid to actually come from an O.P.C.C.C facility. Seems like her parents had at least a bit of dignity, and rather than throwing her out on the streets, they gave her to OPCCC. That's not saying she had a perfect life. The OPCCC is filled with uncaring idiots, so while she didn't starve or anything like that, she still received practically no affection and was basically stuck in one room her entire life. Still, she probably had it the easiest out of all of us, but that's not saying much. Shiruka loves making clothes. Specifically making them out of spider webs. Which may sound bad, but it's actually a lot better than normal fabric. More durable and, according to Kiba, very comfortable. She's replaced most of our clothes already except for Sanson's. Because she doesn't wear any clothes. Shiruku's quirk is called Spider Queen. It's a mutation-type quirk that gives her the attributes of a spider. Her entire lower half is that of a spider, and she can shoot webs out of her butt. Apparently it's not a butt, but I don't know what it is, so I'm calling it a butt for now. She has 5 eyes and her skin is extremely pale. She has super strength, durability, and speed that rivals, but is not equal to Kiba at full power. Lastly, she also possesses the ability to climb on walls and control spiders. Shiruku is probably the 3rd or 2nd strongest in the house. Right now I have her tied with Kiba, and both of them are below Sanson. So the list of strongest to weakest is this. Number 1 Sanson. Number 2 Kiba/Shiruku. Number 3 Shiruka/Kiba. Number 4 K. Number 5 Yami/Eri. Number 6 Eri/Yami. Number 7 Me. Number 8 Kyoku. In a fight her quirk isn't too useful, but otherwise it's still really dangerous. Yami Midoriya. Yami was very different when we found him. Yami's parents both died in the forest, leaving Yami to have to survive by himself with only his quirk. His quirk allows him to absorb negative emotions from people and animals. He can turn these negative emotions into a black goop that he vomits out, and he can turn this black goop into nightmarish demon-like creatures. These creatures are primarily black and white with skull masks and red glowing eyes. List of current creatures that Yami can create. With names picked out by Kiba and myself with the help of Izuku. Ursa, a huge black bear with white bones coming out of it. Very strong and tough. Its claws are very sharp and dangerous, and its bite can split a person in two. Beowulf, large black wolf with white bones coming out of it. It's basically just like an Ursa but faster and apparently easier to create according to Yami. Nevermore, a huge blackbird. It can fly of course and also shoot out its feathers. Whomping willow, a big white tree with black apples growing from it. The apples have bone masks and sharp teeth that can tear through flesh. It can also whack people with its branches. List over. His entire body, including his hair, is white. The white parts of his eyes are black and his pupils are bright red. All of his teeth are also very pointy and sharp. Yami survived for years hunting animals and living in the wild. He'd never seen a positive emotion before. Oh yeah, he can see emotions. He met Dad. And because Dad is Dad, he kidnapped him. At first he was feral and angry like an animal, but after Kyoku filled his head with information, he became a lot more relaxed and lazy. Probably because he doesn't have to worry about starving to death. I mean, I know I relaxed when I didn't have to worry about food anymore. Fu Midoriya. Not much to say really. Parents abandoned me after my quirk came in. Was found by Kiba and then Izuku. Standard tragic backstory. Also, this is the official ranking of tragic backstories. Number 1 Eri, it's so bad we can't even know about it. Number 2 Sanson. Number 3 K. Hashtag 4/5/6 is a tie between me/Kiba and Yami. Number 7 Kyoku. Number 8 Dad, yes I'm including him this time. Number 9 Shiruku. Anyway, back to me I guess. My quirk allows me to regenerate from anything, basically making me unkillable. So long as I've eaten enough meat. I have to eat meat so my quirk can convert them into me parts so I can regenerate. According to Izuku, I have to eat 5 times my body weight in order to be full. If I'm running low on meat, then I basically turn into a zombie and go looking for any meat I can find. And I mean any meat. It doesn't help that my body parts will start to rot and fall off after about a month. Also, my quirks don't let me feel anything physically. Meaning I don't feel pain, but I also can't feel when people touch me or warmth or cold or anything. I also can't taste anything either. It also makes it hard for me to feel things emotionally. I still can, but it's hard. It makes being by myself very unpleasant. I also have very limited super strength and speed. Izuku explained that apparently the reason for this is that people's bodies normally limit how much strength and speed they use so they don't hurt themselves. However, in times of panic, these limits can be broken, causing great damage to the person's body but giving them more power. My body can regenerate, so it sees no use in having those limits. I'm about as strong as an average adult right now, but Izuku says I could get a lot stronger when I'm older. I hope so. I want to be a hero when I grow up. Kiba wants to be one, and I'd like to be alongside her, and it just sounds exciting too. Also, Dad loves heroes. I'm sure he'd be proud of me if I became one. I should get back to training. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like, subscribe, share the video, and support the original writer. See you in the next video.